Want to drive faster? Listen in as Kinch Rendell, an SCCA National Trophy winner and multi-time Pro Solo champion himself, interviews the best autocrossers in the land. He talks fast and drives even faster. And now here's your host, Kinch Rendell.
Hello, this is Kinch, and finally this episode is about ready to go out. This is another in-person interview with three of us, and doing these causes me lots of trouble, mainly because I don't know how to make sure the audio quality coming in is good, so then I sit around for hours trying to clean it up. So you're going to still hear feedback at times or buzzing and such. Luckily, I say this is a good thing I did this again because the pain has caused me to say, hey, Brian, yes, I would love to know how to do this better. And I've met with him once. We're going to meet again. Basically, we're going to make sure the audio coming in is cleaner. And he said what I'm doing manually is kind of crazy. There's ways to have the software clean this up. Good thing he ran a recording studio for 10 years and dealt with a lot of this. So going forward, hopefully, let me know feedback. Everything won't be perfect probably, but hopefully the quality will be better, especially for these in-person interviews where I have these settings set differently to make sure it's not garbage in equals complicated getting good audio out. So today's guests, we have 10 national championships between the two of them. They're from California. They've driven Civics a lot. They're not anymore, but they still have a CRX. They've been Honda fans for quite a while. This is Jeff Wong and Nicole Wong. We got to sit down there at ProPartsUSA.com and do this interview. Got about 2 hours, I think, here. So we cover lots of things. Something that stands out to me is Jeff likes to make the changes to the car for the feel. And another thing you really can pick up on here is how much time he spends, like previous guests, you'll notice, in looking at the video afterwards. Like, not so much data as more so the video and what you can do with that and what you can learn. And this reminds me that people will send videos or upload them to YouTube and have somebody else look at them and say, hey, what do you notice here? Realize they don't use data a lot, and they're saying, yeah, it's just not being accurate. Like our video shows this RPM or this miles per hour, and it doesn't match up. And I know even the data that I've been using has been perfect, but in reaching out to other people in the community, one thing to caution with how accurate is data versus video is sometimes these newer cars especially, what you're seeing for RPM and miles per hour is actually delayed based off of if you got the data raw straight from the ODB2 port. So realize that if you're seeing discrepancies, realize it might just be delayed or something because what you're seeing in the video from the car is not actually accurate. So use data cautiously and maybe compare it to video to make sure it's not doing something different. I know at this last Pro Solo where I drove their CRX, I couldn't get the data to even look like it was the same course. So I couldn't use that. So hopefully this next time I'll take more time, get it set up better, try something different, and have more data that I can look at. And hopefully pretty soon here I will upload some videos with better quality where using the Garmin, it'll actually print out the miles per hour and the course maps. So that'll be interesting to see how accurate is that. We'll have to look and compare. So enjoy this one. There's lots of good points in here. Once again, about 2 hours. Enjoy. Let us know what you think. Any questions you have, definitely send those as well. I'm going to get into doing some follow-up, little shorter podcast interviews with people with your questions. Today we have Jeff and Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you all much for doing this podcast. I'm actually out here sitting at Pro Parts. Where exactly are we in Cali?
Simi Valley.
I found the location. It's beautiful here, just like I was down south of LA and we were just racing out at Fontana. Is the correct place?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is not quite as pretty, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, 90 miles?
90 miles, about 5 hours in traffic?
Pretty much.
They laughed at me. I flew into LAX. I'm pretty sure it was a faster flight than driving at 3 p.m. to get to Fontana.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, no, I'm getting there at 3. I'll be there in time. I even told these guys, I'm like, I'll help. What do you need help with? Yeah, right. They took care of everything, so it was great. So when did you guys get started in autocrossing?
Beginning of the year, I think in 2007, right?
Yeah. And actually my Mazda Speed Protege, it was a 2003 turbocharged.
So what class did that fall into?
STX.
Oh, so
we made a full circle.
You like, I left and now I'm back in STX. So that was a 2003 Mazda Speed, and you supercharged it?
It's kind of like the Mazda Speed Miata where it came with a turbocharger.
Is it the sedan?
Sedan, yes.
Did they have yellow one of those?
It was yellow.
Mine was the yellow one.
Yellow. I didn't know. So I owned, I guess, 2 yellow cars, a Type R and an Audi. I couldn't believe I ever bought a yellow car. But then they kind of grew on me. I'm like, you can always find it. It's so easy. So I did kind of like that. The taxi cab jokes, though, a little much.
I called it school bus.
School bus. So how long did you both race that?
Yeah, so we started in STX, and then the car was hard to drive. So we stopped maybe putting our comps on it. So we went to DSP.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the transmission exploded.
Yeah. Well, so in 2007, or actually before we started autocrossing this car, I was driving on the street and the differential blew up randomly.
The stock one.
Yeah. And, it was a drag car before that. Well, a slow drag car. And with some spirited, canyon driving. And the shop actually, Tri-Point Engineering at the time, helped me put a quaif in there for my birthday, essentially. And
so we decided to go autocross.
Yeah.
So you were drag racing the car?
Yeah, as much as I could.
Was that your first experience racing anything?
Actually, I had a 1994 Accord that, I did the whole body kit, intake, header, exhaust.
Street races.
Yeah, street races, which is actually the first time that Nicole and I
That's how we hung out.
That's
the street
races. Street racing.
Yeah.
That's where y'all met.
Well, no.
That's where we went, I guess, the first time we hung out.
Yeah.
Pseudo date, but not a date. Nothing that serious. Just, hey, come hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually, the first or second date?
I don't remember, but that's how you met my dad.
Yeah.
Was your dad out there?
No, he was chasing me because I snuck out to go street racing,
I can only
This is a long time ago.
I can only imagine in California the scene, because even me growing up in Houston, you're like, oh, I need this kit and that kit and the wheels. But we're just like byproducts of hearing about it from the magazines all out here.
It didn't go well. We got there, and then the police showed up, and he got a ticket, and we went home.
So did you do any racing except for illegal, or did you?
No. So after that, we didn't do that again. So then there used to be a local drag strip, and that's where we took his protege.
Okay.
So we used to go there on Friday nights?
Yeah, Friday nights, which traffic was horrendous.
So I've heard that it's good practice to do the drags for pro solos. Does that help at all, or?
Well, we didn't know about that. We weren't we ran with air conditioning on.
Yeah.
Radio. Yeah, I think there was a subwoofer in the trunk, probably.
Yeah. Bouncing around. Floor mats were in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I will say for reaction time, it really didn't help because we always left after the green light because we didn't care about the reaction time, and we just cared about the total time and our 60 foots.
Okay.
So actually we experimented with tire pressure. Well, the only thing that we could really experiment with was tire pressure at the time. Yeah. But they were 400 tread wear tires. So.
And then you had the boost turned up too, so that didn't help.
Yeah.
So supercharged, you put a different wheel or something on there to make it?
Oh, no, turbocharged. But
okay.
we put in a wastegate controller and everything. So, yeah.
Turbo Sprint has that. It's about as much mods as it has. So did your dad race?
No, not that kind of racing.
Or did he autocross back then?
Oh, yeah, no. He was an autocrosser from, I don't know when, 80s, I think. I don't know, when I was a kid.
So
till about 2000.
So he probably drugged you into the karting because he was doing that?
Yeah. No, I've been walking courses since I can remember. I just didn't autocross.
But did he entice you think? Or say, hey, here's a kart, get in, go?
No. I mean, I rode maybe a few times.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the rules were back then, but I think I was too young to ride along.
Yeah.
I don't remember the karting much, but...
These are youngsters I'm interviewing today. So jealous. 10 years. So many people start when they're 16 and 17.
But the karting, I mean, from the karting till when we actually came out, that was 20 years? No, 10 years later? Oh, 2007 was the first time I actually got into a car and tried to drive.
So you didn't go straight from karts to a car?
No, I went, I did karts, decided I didn't actually care for the autocross, hanging out with my parents, so I stayed home instead, and then we tried it. My dad wasn't doing it anymore. He was off in the road racing scene.
Ah.
So, yeah. So we tried it. I think we did a practice. And then we basically, next thing I know, a month or two later, we were at the San Diego tour in the Protege.
And go and just figure it out.
We haven't stopped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're still good at practicing. I'm still jealous. That's good.
But no, we go to pretty much every event we can get to still.
Exactly. And that's one reason I tell everybody I'd move here to California for the racing. Before anything else, the weather or anything else. It'd be the racing.
Yeah.
Availability.
It's nice. You can go down to San Diego. You can go up north, at least where we are.
Yeah, because you're in this, I guess I'd say northwest of LA.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I was looking at the map again. I'm like, I got to go back to Hollywood later. Where the heck is that at? I was like, oh, it's kind of that direction. So I was quite happy of that. You have to hang out. So, Protege, and then that was STX, blew up a diff. 94 Accord was after that or before that?
That was way before
that.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I had an 89 Accord. That's how old I was. That was not, it still wasn't cool, though. So, okay, at some point here, you started racing. You sounds like a ton right off the bat. At what point did you buy a competitive car or realize that was a ticket?
Actually, the first competitive car was the Civic.
Nice.
And we bought that in 2009.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple years in, you're like, hey.
Yeah, so 2007 was STX Protege, and then 2008 was DSP, and then 2009 we actually bought the Civic.
I actually didn't want a Civic because I kind of thought they were ugly. I liked the 93 body style better. But.
And was the Protege power steering?
Yes.
Oh, so y'all got the taste of what the heck? This is not turning so easy.
Yeah, actually, going to the Civic wasn't that bad.
I think
the steering got harder as the progression of the car got
better,
I guess. So I guess I got stronger with the car.
Yeah. And how did y'all do, let's say, if y'all were looking at results or points-wise, when y'all hopped in a car that was competitive, even if it wasn't set up yet? Did y'all notice a big bump or anything?
That's actually interesting because originally when we first got our motor rebuilt, because it was spewing oil when we first got it, our engine builder at the time somehow messed up the timing on it. So since I guess 2009 we were running with retarded timing the whole time, and
You figured it out after nationals. So.
Yeah, we figured it out after nationals, how to set the timing ourselves and not rely on others. And basically, no one has touched, our Civic or CRX other than us.
Yeah, sensing to make sure.
Yeah. But I would say, when we got the Civic, we kind of got the hang of it real fast.
Yeah. I want to say that the first year at the San Diego tour, I think I was like second place and behind Ken, but he was like 2+ seconds in front of me.
Yeah. But still, y'all started liking the Civic evidently pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. So before we bought it, we test drove. Sebastian and Shauna actually bought one first. So we test drove theirs. I think we forgot what event we tried it at. We liked it. It was fun. So then we went and picked one up.
Yeah, and they had a white one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it somewhere around at some point.
Yeah. So that was 2009, 2010 was pretty fun because between the four of us, we would share cars and tow each other's cars around.
Yeah.
And learn and experiment of setup and everything else? You had somebody to talk to about that, or did y'all each do your own setups?
2009, we did the standard ST Civic setup. And then after that, we kind of went down our own path.
Oh, okay. So you bought whatever standard bar, probably you put some Coney SSPS or something on there.
Yeah, pretty much. Some of it was influenced by her dad suggesting stuff for front wheel drive, which was like, a standard 250 wall bar in the rear.
Yeah.
And, to make it put down power, I guess, is how he would call it.
And that's where I didn't know anything. And you're like, you still have front bar? And I'm like, yeah. And I didn't take it off until driving the green car you guys just briefly owned up in Packwood and not being able to put down power. And then somebody had to explain to me, hey, if you take that off, it'll put down a little better power. I was like, oh, that bar's coming off.
Oh, well, actually, the standard recipe was to have a front bar in 2000.
I think 2009 it was like 400-pound springs, front bar.
Yeah.
Big rear bar.
So,
yeah, we lost our front bar, I think, in 2010.
Yeah, in transition of 2009 to 2010.
Yeah.
It's about when we got the 2812s, too, I think.
Yeah.
Went to the Pimpy Shocks.
Yeah, which was surprising because so many revisions we revalved the shocks quite a bit.
To try to find a nice medium where you could adjust them and have adjustability that would match.
Yeah.
Okay. So when did y'all first get real success in that car? You were still behind Ken at the tour.
Well,
I want to say, well, for myself, I was always actually behind Ken whenever he was at the events. There was very few events I believe that I beat him at, and 2009 was actually our first nationals, and I was 11th, but I still ended up losing to Ken as well.
But at some point there, you think you beat him at a race here or there in 2009 maybe?
I heard that he had the John Lugot special alignment, and the car was wheel spinning like crazy at Fontana, and something
happened to the car towards
went
the
wrong.
end.
Yeah,
It was a snacks cup, and I think us girls, it was me, Shauna, and Lily. We all had our Civics, and we were on our team, and none of us liked driving the black one.
Which was yours?
No, the other black one.
Yeah, which was Ken's
something happened.
car.
And the alignment got messed up, and there was uneven ride heights, and it didn't stop very well.
Or put down power.
But I think that was basically when he kind of stepped out of the class, though.
Yeah.
And he was co-driving with Leslie, or they both had a Civic, or somebody had one?
Leslie had her own, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a red one as well.
Yeah. But, in 2010, and I think was like the turning point for us.
Coming out year of.
Yeah.
You got it matched and took a couple of years to figure it out and tweak with the suspension and alignment enough that you were fast and happy. And winning, I should say.
I think so.
Yeah. So 2010 until what? 2 years ago you tried the Del Sol?
2015 was the Del Sol, yeah.
Okay, so you were in that car 6 or 7 years basically.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm probably coming up on that. I keep thinking, okay, I might have to eventually try something new again.
I still like the CRX, though.
Yeah.
Fun car.
So, and making the transition to a BRZ, wait, you did an RX-8 at one point, right?
That was
Yes.
2011. We had the RX-8 for 5-6 months, I think.
Yeah. Until Nicole deemed it evil.
It was possessed. It hated me.
And it was STX also.
Yes.
So you guys tried STX for 4 to 6 months, and you're trying STX again. Does it feel the same?
No.
Well, we tried STX in the RX-8 and actually did a back-to-back test with our Civic, and the Civic was faster at the time.
Which also back then Civics were still allowed to compete in STX.
Yeah, so in 2011, he actually ran the Civic in STX.
That's right, because I think that's about the time I probably came into the class. I remember you could still do that. So people would run it in both. They'd get enough drivers.
Yeah, so he ran an STX that year, and I think I was in, what was it called back then? Was it ST?
Yeah.
ST.
Oh, yeah.
I was an STL then.
Because I seem to remember Frank, they'd try to get drivers, or they'd split up so they could each try to win in both classes, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, Hollis ran one, and did he win one of those years also in STX?
Yeah. So we actually never got to race each other, really. So in 2010, I ran in ST, and he ran in STX.
Okay.
And we both won, and then...
I like
And
those
then,
days
it flipped.
And then it flipped in 2011,
He
where
ran away from you.
he ran in ST and I ran in STX.
Yeah. That's where people hated that you could run the car in several classes. Now I just wish they would still separate the CRX and Civics again.
Oh,
I think
yes.
we'd have 30 or 40 of them showing up because half the people sold them, and then half the people sold Miatas, and now you don't know what's better or not better per course. So,
CRX is the answer.
I'm going to try to figure it out next event. I will. I'll try to drive it all 3 sessions and see. I'll probably do the little intro of explaining that to everybody. So we drove the CRX, RX-8, a CRX Civic, then Del Sol.
Mm-hmm.
What would you describe the Del Sol? If the RX-8 was evil.
It had a couple names. At first it was just Del Slow, and then by the end it was just Del No.
And you told me something about the rear suspension. I said something about an EG, and you were...
Actually, the front.
The front.
Oh, the front suspension.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was the rear, so I'm glad I brought this up.
Well, the Del Sol was actually fun. It was a fun car to drive until you got to the end and you saw the time. Yeah. It did everything okay, just not as fast as a Civic or CRX.
That's where coming from the Type R. With the limited slip, it was fun. But I was blown away when I got in Jesse's Civic when mine got stolen. And, well, I DNF'd because I didn't turn the steering wheel to have it lined up, which no power steering. I mean, I just laugh and I'm like, you didn't go around the cone correct direction because I didn't turn the wheel, not knowing how well you have to get lined up first. But the pull, the amount of torque that thing pulled down low and mid-range was so much better than a Type R. I can only imagine the Del Sol is probably slower down low and mid, I'm guessing, than a Civic is or a CRX is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that you didn't feel the Del Sol VTEC power until maybe 6,500 RPM.
But then it tricks you, right? And you're like,
But if that car got to be in third gear, it was a lot of fun. Because, like, third gear was right in its sweet spot where you shift a Civic or a CRX to third gear and it feels like you're in overdrive.
Yeah. So y'all drove it at, not Fontana, I'm thinking, what's the next pro?
Crow's Landing.
Crow's Landing, which is a really high-speed course, so it's probably magically fun there.
No. The Del Sol, we didn't get that thing working well, I think, maybe till towards the end of the year.
Yeah,
we were also on the older tires.
Yeah, the tire
so everyone was on the
new... The Bridgestone.
The new faster tires. And
so you were...
still on Toyotas.
That's right, which were supposed to be the same, but not quite the same, but yeah. I still have some of those in case somebody needs some 200 turbo Toyos. I think they've been shaved. So if you need some shaved ones, I got them. They might have frozen a few times. Might be faster now.
We still have some too.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to put those on some car and drive those at some point. I'm going to do that. So the front suspension, it's double wishbone?
Yeah, it's exactly the same suspension. Like I even put on our Civic shocks onto the Del Sol, and upper control arm is a little bit different, but the radius rod bushings going to the front on the Civic versus going towards the back, I think has something to do with the suspension of how it works in low speed corners. Okay, so those are you talking about the two bolts on the Civic that pop up and you bolt them down from the top that hold the A-arm in? No, it's the lower control arm, how it has those rods that go towards the front. Yes. Versus where like your Integra, that rod goes to the back basically. Okay, I'm trying to remember back to that if we even had a rod, because I'm going to the Civic. I'm like, yeah, it's not a rod, but it's a whole control arm that has that goes further back, that goes towards the back. Yeah, okay, so I do remember that now. Yeah, so every time that, like, I mean, we couldn't understand it, but every time you turn in like a turnaround or something, it feels like the front end's always lifting, and I suspect that's just because of the suspension design, but I could be wrong. Yeah, and the fact that the Type Rs have limited slip, that might overcompensate or cover up some of the bad habits the Del Sol has, maybe. It never had problems putting down power. It was more of the minimum speeds going through the corner. So out of its range, basically, or its torque band, per se? No, just the ability. Oh, braking and turning it to grip really well. Yeah. Okay. Because I know that people are racing those in SMF and such, and I'm wondering, although now I think about that, not Chris Shinnefield, what's his name? I think was redesigning, making his own suspension changes, so maybe people in SMF can get really crazy and try to fix some of those different things that you experienced. It wasn't bad. It was just when you're racing against the Civic and the CRX, it wasn't as good. Yeah. So. And what did that car weigh-ish? Oh. 400? I think it was like 23. It was around 2,300 pounds. It depends on if we had the roof or not, but you could run the gas tank pretty low on that and not have to worry about fuel starvation. Yeah. So very much like a Type R probably at that point. I could run that thing really low until one Nationals. I forget if Karen Babber, somebody had a course, I'm drawing in the air here. We went around Big Sweepers, had a little kink, and then something else. She had 2 or 3 of those. I was at quarter tank and fuel starved. I put up to half a tank and still fuel starved. Wow. So there were weird instances where running cars low that usually ran fine. It rocked it enough that it would suck in that air. Oh, I remember freaking out Nationals. I need more gas. Like, I never bring gas. I've got plenty of gas. Like, I'm overgassed. And even putting more in still. I'm like, whoa, really? I don't think we ever hit the fuel cut. Yeah. Well, because we came from the Civic, which, you had to keep up there. So you were like, no. Plus, it had no fuel lights. So we had no idea. Exactly. Where was that? Yeah. So you guys talking the CRX, you went Del Sol, no Civic, you went straight to the CRX, right? So basically, when we got home from Nationals in 2015, the Del Sol was a part that weekend and back to stock, and we picked up the CRX the following weekend, and it was an STS car, like by the end of the week.
because you knew what to do basically based off the Civic experience.
Yeah, and then you
Yes.
know on the West Coast we don't stop autocrosses, so we had an event to get to.
So you built that. So what did you think when you first got in it? I know now you like it better than the Civic.
Well, actually, its first event, the motor blew up.
Yeah, we had
It had a blown head gasket.
Head gasket.
But it was still fun.
But we used a liquid gasket to get by that.
to keep practicing.
Yeah.
It worked.
So you didn't. Oh, but then you have driven Civics and CRXs back to back because you had the green one, or at that point were you not?
No, we never.
So we had we didn't pick up Steve's car, Extran's car, until May of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't running them back to back, but I'm trying to think what you remember. Although I realize you didn't drive them back to back. You went from Del Sol to CRX, and you probably loved it, or something. You guys are telling me how nice the CRX is. What did you think when you got in it, from what you remember about Civics or Del Sols?
We realized we didn't have to slow down so much. That was the first thing I noticed. It was like, oh, well, first the brakes don't work because the Del Sol's brakes were pretty good, and then I kept slowing down too much, and then I don't know. We were up to speed in the CRX probably that weekend, that first event.
Yeah.
Back to being really competitive.
Well, we put our Civic set up on there, and it just worked. But we did it. We actually did bring out the Civic and the CRX to a couple events together, and they raced each other.
And
CRX was faster.
Yeah. It's just all the little things about how it transitions, which it would, you didn't have to do a lot of stuff to make it transition as quickly, where like the Civic you had to, and just going through like sweepers and turnarounds and stuff, you could just get through so much quicker.
Yeah. And is that your old black Civic you had at the same time?
No,
this was
after we picked up Steve's car, we actually put our setup that we revalved his shocks and made it basically like our black car, and we brought him out like that.
Cool. So that way you got back and forth.
Yeah.
And do you know what his car weighed?
No.
His car actually, with the wheels and everything, was probably lighter weight than our black one by I want to say like 20 pounds or so. But
he told me he had one of the lighter ones, which I think he worked hard to go 20 pounds less maybe.
But once we got it though, we went and put our heavy wheels on it. So.
So that's what's interesting is I wonder how much of that is CRX wheelbase versus that CRX probably weighs 100 something pounds less than the Civic.
I want to say it's close to almost 200 pounds roughly. Almost.
Oh yeah, so our Civic was 2075?
Yeah, 2080 or I don't know.
I think
we weighed it with you.
I forgot what that was.
We were 100 pounds
you were
heavier
100
than
or 120 pounds heavier than me, and was like probably 1930 something, or let's say 1940.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say our CRX is somewhere in the 1880 or something. I mean, we have the heaviest 88 CRX.
Yeah,
that's because y'all wrapped it to make it look good. I swear that's it.
We didn't even try. We just bought the lightest car and put all our heavy stuff on it.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I think your rear bar, I tried to get it off your Civic. I think that's lighter than most people's. It reminds me of whatever Andy Hollis did. I think we had talked about this before. I think your bar setup that Pro Parts makes is lighter weight than the standard ASR, is it?
Yeah.
Setup?
Oh, probably the way it mounts.
Yeah.
It looks to me like that's even lighter. So all I really do is I don't do setup. I just do what's lighter. But I couldn't get it off. I think I even emailed or messaged you. I'm like, I can't get that back little, what tool goes in there? I probably have stripped it or something. So it's still in the car because I couldn't get it off, which is A-okay. But I'm like, I got to get that off and put it on my car. I swear it looks lighter. So that's where I wonder, it's incredible when I put somebody in the Civic when I'm co-drive or have a co-driver or a rider, the car, it's totally, my biggest complaint is I can't slow down.
Oh, with the passenger?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, obviously it's not accelerating as quick, but I can't feel that. But I can feel that I hit the brakes and I blow my turns. And now that y'all mentioned that in the CRX this weekend, I think I was almost overslowing for the tight turns at the Pro. I want to see if my Garmin video will show me what speed I was carrying through there, since the Solo Storm wasn't working the best. I almost think I overslowed every time. I kind of want to come off the brakes and have the car push just a little bit. Like, okay, you were just going a mile an hour too fast, but I never had that.
Yeah, that CRX is never really pushed in a sweeper. We spent the whole time trying to get the back to not oversteer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep
the
it
car naturally just likes corners, I guess.
Yeah, no, it felt fine with that. And so Jeff's all asked me, how's it doing turn in? I'm like, Jeff, I wish I knew. So maybe it was the second session, like, what do you mean to think about? Or whatever. I'm like, all right, what am I doing here? Let me focus on it. And that's something that's come out in this podcast. Ross Bentley and several people have said, hey, when you're out there practicing, especially more so than at a pro, have a thought of what you're doing for each run or each session. Like, what am I really focused on feeling or listening to? And that's where when you're asking me this stuff, I'm like, that's why I asked you back, what should I think about? Because I guess I've done this so long, I don't think about, oh, what's the car doing here or there? What I notice is, oh, I had to catch the car. And that's like my only bit of feel I give anybody is, oh, I had to catch it over there. But what? And then I have to think, was it me or the surface or the car?
Oh, I get drilled after every run. I'm used to it now, though. But he's always asking me, what did it do? What did it do here? I don't know.
But has it helped you to think about that as you run? Does she give you more feedback now than she used to?
It's about the same.
I usually just complain when the car doesn't let me do something that I want it to do.
Like what? What's an example?
Braking and turning like this weekend. The
So-
FRS, I was getting some hard pedal and it was frustrating.
So where you push the brake pedal and it's hard instead of being assist.
It doesn't like the CRX style trail braking as much as I'm working on that.
Do you think it's computer related or? So you don't left foot brake. What in the Type R? It took me years until I said it to enough people. I said the pedal sometimes I go to push it and the assist is all gone and it barely works. Well, I was dragging my foot and using up all the assists. Somebody told me. So there are several times even at nationals I come to the end of a section where I've touched. I go to hit the pedal and it's just like you have to push it 10 times as hard. But if you're not left foot braking, I don't think you can do that.
We're also not used to ABS.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I don't like it.
I can say that I tried it without ABS at the Pro on Sunday, and I put that fuse back in on the first run.
Oh, so in rallycross, I finally did practice. You have to pull the fuse. The S2000 was useless with anti-lock brakes. But I've wondered, it was something recently I saw where they show the graph of braking force, and right before anti-lock brakes kicks in, you have more braking, just like the Civic, as long as you don't lock them up per se. So I've wondered how many people would be better at braking than anti-lock brakes in their car.
I know when you took the fuse out, it seemed like he was barely touching it, and the car was already locking up on the FRS. But I don't know if that's our aggressive pads we put on.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah. And that's
We're looking into it.
That's where the FRS that I drove, I forget if it was an STX. I think it was still an STX trim last year. The brakes to me didn't work. And he's riding with me the first run, and here comes a tight hairpin right at the beginning of the course almost. He's like, slow down. I'm like, I'm about to. Like, I'm a late breaker. And talking to Brian Peters, I've told several people this week, and I'm like, oh, those brakes. He goes, well, they're pretty good. I go, well, the Type R and the S2000 is like, oh, you can't compare to that. So he like put his hand up. The Type R is up here. So the Type R used to throw people like they thought their head was going through the windshield. Jeff Lundgren was a left foot breaker, got in there one time. He was like, what's wrong with your brakes? I said, nothing, but I had aggressive pads on there. It was interesting, not that I've driven your car, but I wonder if I would think the same thing, that it doesn't brake well enough with anti-lock brakes. Like, somebody told me, it was David Felt actually in Type R, he goes, if you don't feel the anti-lock brakes when you're trying to brake a lot, you're not pressing the pedal hard enough. So his advice was to use the computer as much as you can for the ultimate.
I don't think I would like
opposite.
that.
Yeah.
Well, I brake hard into corners harder than he does, so I'm upset the FRS more so far.
Yeah, having driven a Type R, Clint Child has a STX Type R that he used to campaign, and he put aggressive pads on it as well too, and they definitely do work a lot better than the Civic or CRX, but not to the point where you can, like, I would say that those brakes were way better than probably the FRS brakes easily.
And I wonder if my tendency is to overbrake, especially in slow stuff, where you guys, I have a feeling most people in Civics, they don't overbrake, where I feel like if anything, I'm overbraking somehow instead of underbraking if possible. I really think that I lean toward that, and or I'm braking. I've been thinking about this a lot after the race, like, oh, I think I was not braking soon enough before some elements, like on the turnouts after a little slalom at the start. I'm trying to brake and turn. I'm like, wait, you're not really supposed to do that. So I told myself on Sunday when I didn't make those runs, I'm like, I'm going to brake before the cone and go out. Whereas you're like, you don't need to brake at all. So if anything, I think I'm either dragging or tapping a little bit, making people think I'm probably braking more than all of a sudden I do lay into them.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. And that's where you guys actually, do you ever run Solo Storm? Any data?
We did.
We used to until we found that really what it. I mean, in the CRX, we tried to use it for its own purpose, but given that, at practices or even local events, we'd be within a couple tenths of each other, and it was giving false data that we'd find out later on, and so that's why we ended up stopped using Solo Storm and reintroduced it with the FRS, and sort of got the same feeling, or not the same feeling, but the same data
that was
discrepancies.
Or didn't give you enough.
And I guess the main things that we were looking at were minimum speeds and whatnot, and all of a sudden, and because we could use RPM, but all of a sudden we wouldn't get any data on RPM sometimes, even though we know that we're floored.
Yeah. So it would blip, basically. The data didn't stay consistent.
Yeah. So we found that video is just better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we'd sync our videos up together, and then it wouldn't match what SoloStorm told us, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where you guys are so good at putting the video up there side by side or top and bottom. Which software? You told me at one point. Was it the Sony?
Sony, yeah.
Yeah, and I forget who. I've got Camtasia, which I paid like $300 for, which can do that. And I think maybe Race Render. There might be some free ones
I've
now.
heard Race Render works as well too.
I thought about trying that one, but the Sony's really old, but it works.
Yeah, you've got it. You know what you're doing. So
yeah.
I'm just thinking for other people out there listening, what can they use to do the same thing to look? Because like you're saying, and several people have realized the same thing. Looking at video is huge. Nick Chu said, I didn't realize this. He uploads it to YouTube and plays it at speed half or speed a quarter. He said you can then really see the inputs or little inputs. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I went straight over there and did it. Of course, I muted it because hearing yourself, the voice going slow was too distracting. But it's really cool to see things slow down at different speeds.
Yeah, well, on the Sony, we can actually...
Yeah, we do segment times on Sony.
Oh, cool.
And you can go all the way to tenths. So.
Oh, cool. So you can break it down with which software is that called?
The Sony Vegas.
Vegas, okay. So you can break that down segment times. You're basically lining yourselves up at a new place and running it?
Yeah, it only works like in each other because we have the same camera angle, so we'll pick a cone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll sync it to this cone.
Yeah, so that's easier to do when you're in the same car with the camera in the same position. Gotcha, because we've tried to sync it up. I know Jay Yost with the Civic when he was running with me, he did some of that. I know it took him quite a while to break the course down, like, okay, let's catch us both up to this point and go.
Yeah, because we've had our share of camera mounts that move, and it makes it hard to suddenly sync our videos.
Yeah. So how much time have y'all spent in the past versus now of looking at video after a race or after a pro? Did y'all...
It hasn't changed.
Okay.
It's a little obsessive.
No,
every whenever Jeff's at home, he's on the computer staring at our videos nonstop.
Nice. No, that's what I'm realizing with the podcast. Certain people do certain things, and I think a lot of different things can work for somebody. But as long as you're doing something, and if the video works for people, they should be doing video. If data works, some people will break down data forever. I used to do that on TrackMate until I realized, hey, once again, the tighter line right there, one. And that's kind of done. But I haven't done the video work that you guys have. You have made some coaching videos, but I don't sit there and just look over and over and over again. So maybe that's what you're doing, or what are you doing if you're looking at video?
Well, because we changed the cars so much, we're just looking at characteristics of the cars, typically at speed. But as far as comparing segment times, we learn from our own videos on top of other people's videos, strengths and weaknesses.
So that's our one time you asked kind of some video. I was probably New Mexico. I'm like, yeah, have fun. We were like a tenth of a second difference.
Yeah.
But you guys maybe can break that down to find differences per segment.
Yeah, I will say that every video definitely has strength and weaknesses, regardless of driver.
Even between the two of us, he'll tell me, oh, the car's not turning in the slalom, and then you watch my video and the thing's swinging all over the place. So it's just interesting how even between the drivers, the video shows different stuff.
That's and Nick Chu seemed to talk about that, like how he would study the video and slow it down and look at the little different movements. I don't know if I know enough to notice. So that's interesting to hear. You've picked up something where you can say it's not turning, whereas I would be hoping that I could look at data to see that it's not turning the same or something. Of course, it has to be good data. That's good that you said that. If you can't get that detailed information on the data, then the video obviously never lies. You can notice something there.
Yeah, but he watches our how we drive the car, because how easy it is to drive. That's what he focuses on.
The inputs of the hands, maybe.
Yeah, if we're overcorrecting or doing anything like that, he knows it's not quite right. So.
Okay. And I'd meant to let you see my video. I was like, oh, I should let Jeff, but I don't want you to take any tons of time to look at it. Because watching the video, what I mainly noticed was I was bouncing. But I probably bounce in every freaking car. But in that one, since I'm limited with my head, I was like, oh, is my neck okay? That's all I thought. Like,
for whatever reason, our CRX is a little bouncy.
Oh, that's a bouncy surface. But it sounds like when I talked to you, it's set up the same spring rate-ish as your black Civic.
Yeah.
Which I drove out there at that one test event for 12 runs or whatever and had a blast.
Yeah.
Depends where on the lot it is. Plus, the lot actually has changed. It's gotten a little bouncier over the last few years.
Oh, I brought up the data question a while ago because one thing Ross Bentley said was the brake pressure is trace. He wants to see that, at least on the track, more than anything else, saying that how people come off the brake pedal and attack it is a big key for the last little bits that you can get out of a car. Can you see anything about that on a video?
No.
So you're not thinking braking as much as probably line inputs and what the car's doing?
Yeah.
Okay. That's where I'm sitting there and I asked the guy at Solo Storm, I was like, hey, can I do this? He goes, you have to buy this and you have to run it through some other system to get the data to me. Whereas I still have the TrackMate system, which I think I can also get a little adapter and maybe tie that in or get a DL1 or something.
Yeah, I've heard DL1s definitely can extract all that data.
Yeah. That's where I would think actually if you could know you were getting good data, you would probably love to geek out with that. You'd be like, oh, look at this, Nicole. You attacked it 2/10 slower or less than I did and harder. And that's what I'd love to be able to sit there for a day and practice and then go look at data after a little while and then go back and practice to try. Because I've seen people with so many different styles to see if I could then, if I thought about it by seeing the data, I said some people can just look at the graphs and then they can go and perform that better once they see what they're doing versus somebody else. They'll think about how their foot moves in the brake or something else.
Yeah. Originally when we got the Solo Storm, it did help out a little bit when there was discrepancies between Nicole and I. But as it got tighter, or as the car got better, our driving was better. That actually mattered less, unfortunately.
Yeah, cause especially if you have a tint over a whole course once again.
Yeah.
That's where I swear in autocross, I can do shocks and springs and I can blow that away in one turn.
Yeah.
Not the reason I don't want the best. Believe me, I want to just have you set up my cars all the time and have them perfect and go drive. But I'm like, oh my goodness, every time I come to this turn, I could screw it up again. Which you have to really mess it up on Soul Storm or something to see it, though.
Yeah.
That's what I've also realized. Once you get good and you're consistent, it's not much difference.
Yeah.
I feel like it's always going to help the person if they're quite a bit slower than you or something.
Yeah.
The Solo Storm was a little better with the FRS because of the OB2, though.
Yeah.
Because on the CRX, we were relying only on the GPS.
Yep.
So that seemed to shift throughout our practices.
Oh, true. That's where. And do you all have the small GPS or the big mounted one?
The
smaller one.
Smaller one.
Yeah, so that's what even this weekend when I borrowed it from Scott Frazier. Thanks, Scott. They didn't line up at all. So I went and showed him right before they were leaving, and he was clicking around. I was like, oh, no, it's set up for drift and whatever, and it didn't line up, which was the same challenge we had in the Civic with the bigger system. I forget what they called it, with the red box. That one, I think, in a Civic where you have a little battery and you turn it off and on all the time, the GPS probably wasn't even aligning to enough satellites.
Oh.
So it would also blip at times. So that's where, yeah, if you can't get good data, then in my case I found I wasn't using it to look at it consistently. Whereas with the video, obviously, as long as you've got a good camera, you know you can look at it every time.
Yeah, like even the video. So we had the video, and you can see the Solo Storm tracking, and it was funny because like you'd see the cars RPMs in miles per hour, and then you'd see the Solo Storm, and it's like, wait a minute, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So there was
it was off at time.
It was just a delay.
Yeah, just.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, going through everything.
I don't know. Maybe it's
end user error.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
maybe it's us.
Firmware and everything else can be improved as it goes.
Yeah.
So thoughts on the STX? How much is left to do build wise, test wise?
There's always testing.
Yeah. It's been nonstop. We started truly developing the car in January with good tires, and literally it's been a different car almost every event, possibly even every run.
So how much difference? So with the testing, maybe you can break down what all you're testing. Is it shock changes? I know you brought several springs to the Pro Solo. When you're changing these things, are you noticing difference in time hugely, or are you doing tenths at a time when you're adjusting these things?
I don't unfortunately race the clock. I race more for a feel. The time is a secondary for me.
Meaning that you know enough about what you expect to have for feel of a good gripping in the different areas, probably.
Yeah, I'm basically trying to channel the inner CRX in me to be able to drive it like that.
Yeah,
and it's close, I would say, but as we get the car better and better, we have to redo all of our testing again.
Yeah, that's like keep hearing on the tire testing people are doing. They said unless you're going to change your alignment and set up for the best for that tire, slapping the tires on there and testing is really testing your setup with those two different tires, but not the tires to their max. I don't think you guys are playing with tires at this point, but that's one thing that somebody pointed out. Like me, I just kept putting the rivals on the car. I didn't change anything. They were okay, but they were so vague. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, we actually, on our CRX, we started last year on rivals. We ran them all the way up until Spring Nationals. And then when we got back, we switched to Bridgestones, and we basically redid the car.
Yeah.
And
it paid off, though. So when you switched it, give us a rundown on, okay, I switched this. Once again, to come back to feel, like it doesn't feel as good right now?
Surprisingly, just putting the Bridgestones on, we decided we were going to do a baseline of where we needed to start at. And it came down to a feel of execution, essentially, and how, the one thing that Nicole and I like to do the most is to lead a car into corners, every corner, basically. I mean, it hurts us, in some things because we're overturning when we could be not turning as much, to get around like a slalom cone or a slalom in general. But I will say that, if slapping on, because the car is set up for Bridgestones now, if we put on BFG, the 1.0s, what we started with originally, it would be it was undrivable, essentially.
Yeah, I tried to send those tires out here, and you're like, no, don't do it. I forget what you explained it to be, but you were like, no, don't try that. I'm like, but I have these brand new ones, and they seem stiffer.
Yeah, I don't think it would have ended well, but
I'm still tempted. I'd be like, I could just buy a set and send them out here, and y'all can just keep them or something, but I could try them.
We actually still have some.
You have the 1.0s.
Yeah, we have 205s and 225s in our garage. We have way too many tires.
Oh, I can't remember which ones I liked more. I think I started with the 225s, and Whitener's like, oh, yeah, try the other ones. And honestly, I just looked at them when I had someone mounted. I was like, the 205s look like they fit worse or bulge out more than 225s, oddly enough, on those 7.5-inch wide wheels. It was perplexing in my mind. I'm like, why does that look so funny when it's the smaller tire, supposedly?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we picked a
different. Well, it's also the 225 45 versus a 205 50.
There you go. It looked like the 225 fit better on there. I don't remember feeling a difference, though. Whiten was like, oh, try the other one, so I did. And this time I think I ordered two 225s and two 205s. So I'd be like, that way I can put whatever on the front if I like it, and I'll swap them, which would be odd to have big ones on the rear. But for me, it's always been about the feel of those tires in the front. I just didn't have it.
Yeah.
Just being vague. And that's where you mentioned the Bridgestones. The crispness is what I've always liked. I feel like I know exactly what they're doing, and when I'm kind of over the limit or not, I know. And on the others, of course, I haven't tried the 1.15s yet, but just there's a lot of grip here somewhere, but I don't know where the heck it's at, which actually makes me think of Toyo.
Yeah. When we slapped the 225 rivals on at the end of last year on our CRX, the way it is right now, I went out there and I tried to drive it the exact same way, and I matched the time. It was just very sloppy.
Yeah.
I may have ran over a lot of cones.
Oh, okay. So that's not necessarily clean. So you said lead the car, lead into corners, and you told me that this weekend. And I'm thinking when you said that from what you said, really large arcs. So you're starting the turns as early as possible.
Yes.
And you two like to do that for some certain reason, or is that your style, or you feel like I think that's actually faster to have the biggest arcs possible.
I think
it's not necessarily big arcs, though.
It's
more just turning in
being
super
ahead of
early.
Trying to be ahead of every cone instead of falling behind. But that is a style of ours that we would like to retain even in this rear-wheel drive car.
So that's where I'm thinking. It's basically you're trying to late apex as much stuff as possible to be ahead in the course.
Yeah.
Unlike that finish on the left that I was, if you see the video, it's just I was behind because I came off the right side again. I said, oh, it's really easy. I came over and pooched it.
Yeah. I mean, for example, like, you know, the turnarounds on the Pro Solo, it's hard for us to try to keep the wheel as straight as possible and to not turn around those cones, even though it was as easy as it was. So
like the last cone leading into it, you would tuck behind it.
Well, no, I'm just like after the turnaround where like you went into that slalom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like it was like pretty open.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, but we were tucked behind the exit cone.
Yeah.
Okay, but I like that because you're cutting distance, and believe me, I told myself, especially if I overslow and like this is like almost a 180 there, I always want to tuck in. Anywhere I'm going slow, I want to be as tight as possible. So my thought is, if you tucked in behind that cone, you didn't give up any extra distance going over that you had to fight back.
Yeah.
Then I think the question is, were you at the limit on that tighter line? Is for me, I'm always asking, was I at the limit there?
Yeah.
Which is the other. I swear that's got to be faster. One thing I noticed when I should have been getting ready to race on Sunday, I videoed on Facebook Live people coming to the crossover the first way. And basically everybody can picture this. I'm thinking left-hand side course here. They'd come out and they'd have to do a big left and come back to the right. They were making this big, huge S, basically. And the Miata drivers, of course, Miatas are crazy how they handle. They were adding distance on the first left by not slowing down, and then fighting all the way back over and adding distance over here. And in my mind, I can't ever see that having an S instead of shutting it down here and just coming more straight would be faster. And yet somebody commented, they go, oh, yeah, we found time by doing that. So that's one of those places where I don't think they were leading. I think they were just lagging, keeping their foot in the gas and dealing with it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely compromises and which in the FRS it was lacking rear grip, which I would have probably did the Miata line almost.
Okay, yeah.
If it's stock, but
so when you say that, that's the only thing I think of. I know in a Civic is lacking rear grip, lacking on sweepers, power.
Putting down.
Well, it was like corner entry was.
Well, the in between powering.
Yeah,
in between.
The car was never settled on corner entry to allow us to put down power without overcorrecting a whole bunch.
Okay.
So.
And that's probably easy to see in a video. I'm picturing you thinking, looking at video, you'll see you probably enter the corner and have to catch it somewhat, like it's stepping out somewhat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. So the trail braking, once again, that you just mentioned earlier, it's not so happy with, which reminds me of Ron Williams saying when he got in a Miata, at least the way he was driving those, he goes, you couldn't trail brake it. And he's like, I couldn't stand driving the car because I could not trail brake the car because it wanted to go to the ditch. So it's making me think of that when you say that, hey, it doesn't like the trail braking. And it seems, I don't know if every car can be adjusted. I keep thinking you can probably adjust it because some people say, oh, no, you can. If you set the suspension a certain way, you can do that. So you're probably thinking that with enough testing and tweaking, you can change that characteristic.
Oh, yeah. I hope so. Well, it was working like that before, and then we decided to change the car before the Pro in hopes that it would work, which it did in San Diego, but then Fontana, it was a different story.
Yeah, and I've been in San Diego in a long time. Is it still gritty?
It's falling apart.
Yeah, it's not. I would say
the
probably
grip almost
Fontana
feels
is
better than Fontana, though.
Oh.
But bouncier.
Yeah.
Kind of almost like off-roading.
Yeah.
With all the patches and potholes.
Okay. Mineral Wells. That thing is, they got grass growing up in one section, but they find a way through it, and they haul butt and go really fast some other way and come back. And yet they also have bumps in there as well. So it keeps
like at San Diego, there were some parts of the course where you can hear the course coming up underneath the car.
And you get flying everywhere. That's what I remember is how gritty it was there. I drove an SMF Civic with no limit slip, turbo, and just stuff flying up. Like those Hoosiers were throwing rocks everywhere the whole time.
Well, it's no different than L3 running in the first group.
Oh, yeah. They threw a lot of dust up there in Fontana. That was crazy.
I thought I was in the wrong spot. It was just, I've never heard that much sand noise before.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the guy's name in the RX-8, the stock. Is it Nick?
Kenton?
Kenton. There you go. Thank you. Nick becomes Kenton. I don't know. I noticed even, I'm not sure it was Sunday or later on Saturday, he still threw up some chalk and some dust. And whatever line he was trying, or he was just going that much faster, it was like, not many people were still doing it, but every once in a while you'd see somebody get offline a little bit and toss it up.
Yeah, he's. I've seen him on course, and he's definitely a good driver, and I do like his lines for the most part.
So, do you find yourself able to check out videos on YouTube of other people and compare? Like, line would be easy to see, I guess, no matter what.
Yes, like I've compared, like even this event, I've compared to stock cars as well too.
Yeah, and are you making sure you're picking out people that are fast and winning?
It doesn't actually fast or just under, just to see every video is different.
Something else to try. Also, I remembered, I thought a while ago, are you taking notes of setup? So you knew the setup that worked down south in San Diego. Do you have that written down? Do you like log it?
Yes, actually, because in our Civic, we got a little carried away for a while, and we couldn't remember what we had before. And like we would try looking at videos, and we'd sit there and argue, no, we had this. So now we have an email that goes between the two of us that we call it our logbook. And every time he touches the car, he emails us, and we keep track of it that way now.
Nice. So you always have it. You can always find it and you look it up.
Yes,
But sometimes changes go, like we didn't do anything for the Pro. In the Pro, we did a spring change, a bar change, and then the shocks and ride heights.
All right, let's take a break and log that right now. But so will you note that? Will you try to go back and at least note that, hey, we changed some of these things?
Just maybe the last one. That's
yeah.
Oh, yeah, if you didn't like the other ones,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Although I guess if you log them in case you think to do it again, if you could search back, go, oops, we tried this, at least at Fontana.
There's been a couple of times where he's made a change that I just really didn't like, that I wrote an email just saying that I didn't like this one setting. Just so if it came up again, I can show the email.
That's where I think I'd be better if somebody, because I'm not thinking I'm going to change all this. If I was to then say, hey, I felt this. Maybe then if I did that enough times, I'd be like, oh, yeah, every time I do this, I don't like it. Whereas when I took the front bar off, I didn't notice a difference. And I don't know, I keep saying I have no feel, but yet I want to have feel. I'm now going to blame myself of not having a good seat that I stick in that maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think why I don't have this feel when you ask me, what's it doing on turn in? I'm like, I don't know. I think I just turn until it turns where I want to turn, and then but I have no recollection. The only thing I noticed in your car watching the video, I'm like, my hands I'm not shuffle steering. And then I said, is your steering wheel smaller? I said, yes, it's pretty small. But it took me watching the video to even realize that I wasn't shuffle steering. So I don't know if I'm just that oblivious. I don't know what I'm paying attention to, but it's not. I want to be over there, I think, and I'm on this line. I need to be over there, I think, is like the extent of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's probably how I should be as well, too, on race day.
Yeah, I'm more like that. Jeff always says, what did the car do here? I'm like, I don't know. I was just trying to pay attention to where I'm going.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting. If I can take your thought and go back and practice and say, okay, what am I feeling here? Is it doing this? And then make big changes. Like when you did the shock one tweak down in the rear for me, I was thinking, oh, wait, Whitener and those guys are saying make big changes, but it's at a Pro. I was tempted to say, no, do like triple that. I wanted to see if I could notice a difference.
Yeah, well, usually on our car, like, single clicks will definitely be a drastic change.
And that's where the car seemed settled afterwards, so it probably did. I know they say, especially in testing, make the big changes to see if you tell a difference. Whereas, had that been my car with no my knowledge of shocks, I would have let air pressure out the rear. Okay. That's what I would have done. I would have said, if we're doing 28 all around, that's now 24 in the rear. That would have been the extent of trying to make it not be slippery, basically. And it might have made it worse, but I'd be like, oh, okay, then let's add a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like, with all the practices and runs that we get on a Saturday, 12 to 12 runs minimum and up towards like 20 runs per day, and you basically have a morning and afternoon session. I guess that helped with my mindset as far as being able to test multiple things on the same course, morning and afternoon, to be able to isolate what does what.
And I like that you talked about feel, because one of the Nationals testing tunes they put up, it was a course like 60, 70 seconds long. And we tweaked things, and I'm like, when it comes down to looking at the clock, which is what I'd think to do, you couldn't tell because one mistake, once again, throws any change out the window. Whereas what you're saying, if you're truly thinking with the feel, hey, did that feel better, more, in my mind, more secure, more planted, that I could probably focus on and know, versus trying to look at the clock, which any little thing can throw the clock time off by several tenths of a second easily.
Yeah, I mean that even like when we were testing tires and stuff, it always came down to the feel first and then time second.
Yeah.
Well, you would be able to. Times don't really change for you. You just drive around, whatever.
Yeah, I also do have a tendency to drive around things.
Change.
So that's amazing. Even though you can drive around it and probably at the same times. Actually, maybe that makes more sense of why you then want the best feel to be able to drive the car. Because I feel like I'm probably like that. Whatever the car is, I'm just going to drive it. And I don't even think, hey, I should change something except for it's loose in the rear on these front-wheel drive cars. But if you're able to drive around it, that's a testament that you're actually then willing to say, hey, no, it's about the feel. I need to feel better about this or more confident. And then ask her probably the same type things. Or it sounds like she gives you the feedback if she doesn't like it.
Yeah.
I don't drive around in.
Is it only an email?
No.
Oh.
No.
The email's the second or third reminder, like, hey,
Yeah.
for real, I did not.
No, that's when it's like a really bad direction.
Now I'm being a computer geek. I'm thinking if there's a program, I wonder, I mean, you could create a little website or a program that you could input this camber, this spring, these setups. You could put a little smiley face or check mark or 5 stars.
Oh.
But it could also check to see if you've done this before. Like if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to go and try this. And it could probably say, oh, you did this 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Because I wonder, do you ever look back?
We actually make a lot of circles.
Yeah, we do.
That kind of helps us, though. We'll go back to things after we've exhausted everything, and we'll go back to it, and then but at a slightly different variation, and it usually helps us go forward, I guess.
Okay. So you are going back. You've tried a lot of things, so you're like, hey, let's go try this again.
Yeah.
That's why we have a box of
We have
20 different springs.
Yeah, spring rates
that we
from
carry around with
200
us.
pounds to like 1,000, all in the back of the truck or FRS.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
And do you make drastic changes usually, or are you just tweaking by going one level up or down?
Oh, no. Big changes.
Oh, we've done
Everything.
big changes. I mean, we've tried anywhere from the internet setup to below the internet setup, above the internet setup,
Yeah.
and it's like, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's all about how we could drive the car.
Yeah.
So,
Have you all
and-
been in
and-
anybody else's cars? Like before you got this one, were you ever touched anybody else's STX?
We drove a couple before
Yeah.
we bought the car to see if we liked it.
Yeah, we drove Terrence's car, which Lugata is driving.
Yeah.
So we drove that car back after Nationals, actually, just to see what it felt like, because I think we raced ours stock at that time.
Yeah, but even before we bought the car, we drove Mac and Justin Singh's
Oh,
car.
yeah.
And Carlton's
yeah.
car.
Yeah, to test and tune up at Crow's Landing.
Yeah. Fun. So it was fun enough or interesting enough to think to get one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It was harder
It was
for
hard
me at the time because I had to slow my power steering arms down because I turned the wheel thinking it was a ZRX and the thing just wanted to spin.
Oh, yeah. That's where I'm also wondering, because I've been driving the S2000. I'm now used to that, probably from the GT3, of not having the fast hands, although they were probably plenty fast in the CRX. But the S2000s are almost evil when you do that. The rear kicks out so quickly. I used to put these 3 fingers on only. I'd get in the car and go, do not grab this wheel, like you have to turn it. Because it keeps sliding out.
Yeah.
It's insane, that steering rack.
The Del Sol was actually like that. That taught me actually power steering. That car, you could not turn it hard at the beginning without it
Yeah.
sending you backwards.
So yeah, that's interesting. It's all about the rack, not the fact that an S2000 doesn't have 70% of the weight up front like the Civics or Del Sol.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how quick that rack is.
It was nice that the actually counter steering in the Del Sol with the power
Oh, it
steering.
was easy. I
Or
could do
power
it.
power
Like my
assist.
shoulders were being disconnected.
Yeah.
Counter steer the car.
So how often did y'all spin that car when y'all first,
Which one?
the Del Sol?
The Del Sol spun almost every event.
And do you remember that in the Civic back in the day when you first got in the Civic? Do you
Oh,
spin
no,
much?
no.
we didn't spin.
Really?
No. Well, the interesting part is that the Del Sol was actually an in-between wheelbase, where like the CRX was a 90 wheelbase.
Yeah.
Del Sol was 93, and the Civic was like 96.
So how about the CRX? Spins in that at first?
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
The
yeah,
very beginning.
Yeah, it was challenging to get the rear end tamed.
Yeah, I bring that up because so many people, I think people either are over-aggressive or they're under-aggressive. I think that I learned a ton by spinning cars. Like if I never spin a car, especially the Integra, I'd spin it all the freaking time. I feel like coming to these California pros back in the day, it was like, oh, look, it's a third gear shift. There one again. Or Utah. I'd keep trying it, though. Like, I'm going to figure this out. So I would tell people in front-wheel drive cars, if you're not spinning them, I don't think you're trying hard enough or trying enough to see what you can do.
Well, I think when we went from the Del Sol to the CRX, the Del Sol, I call them scary feels, but you just learn to trust them, and you just drive with them and accept it. Well, when you go into the CRX, you'll just go backwards. If you like, oh, okay, we've got this, the car says, nope, we're going.
Yeah, we're going to go around.
It doesn't catch it. Because the Del Sol, I don't know what about that car. It just seemed like the front and the rear were never really in phase with one another. Yeah. So,
well, we did run max tow out in the rear.
Yeah, that was the only way to get.
What is max tow out?
It drove like a forklift.
A quarter, a half.
I want to say close to a half.
It was like a half-inch.
Yeah.
Tow out.
I think that's what Mark Daddio did in the Neon back in the day. It was actually, I think it was an inch and a quarter or inch and a half to try to get those stock cars.
So when the grip went down, we went around.
Oh, yeah.
So, like National, I think, did it rain?
It was drying conditions for...
Maybe the Pro. I know when we went out to Packwood, because that's a low grip, I think I was backwards nearly every run.
Yeah.
But,
And plus, it's also up and down.
Yeah.
I remember watching Bob Tennell come across. They had a crossover kind of like this weekend, not quite as extreme. The BMW on 3 wheels bouncing across the lot. I was like, wow, how does he just hold on? And of course, he probably has a 5-point harness. But I'm thinking, how in the heck is he doing that? Bouncing across on 3 wheels going there. So the BRZ, spinnies to begin with? Or at times now still, or no?
No, not really.
I guess now I think about it, you got a little crazy at the finish.
Yeah, I spun twice this weekend. But actually part of it was I can't counter steer right now because my shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
So the one time I just didn't catch it. And I'm like, oh, that was kind of fun. But then in the challenge when I spun, I felt the tearing in my arms. So I was just kind of like, you know what, let's go route.
Yeah, you're going to love power steering.
Yeah. Well, no, actually the power steering it's weird. It's now that I have power steering, my shoulder's all messed up.
You have to get back in the Civic and just drive around the neighborhood, get powered up, make that
my workout.
Yeah, exactly. I just wonder how many people don't spin and therefore they've never gotten past the limit to know where the limit's at. I kind of have a theory going here that if you're not spinning your car, haven't ever, you're probably not getting to the limit, or you're in some car that just doesn't spin.
I had some near moments of spinning. I probably spun the FRS maybe 1 or 2 times. Yeah. No.
And that's another thing to say. With people, the more experience you have, you're so much better catching cars that the chances of you spinning a car compared to somebody new a couple years in is probably drastically different.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, learning rear-wheel drive was a steep learning curve. And but I think, going after that feel helped us to make the car better. So, spinning is at a minimum.
So what have you learned for that steep learning curve? What have you either learned or changed, or what have you changed besides the car setup in the learning department?
Really nothing. I mean, I guess between having different setups of like good or bad for powering down was the biggest issue. And if anything, I feel like when the setup is right, it seems like it's very easy to transition from like the Civic or the Civic and CRX to the FRS.
But it wasn't like that in the beginning.
But yeah, I mean, I get, yeah, for how it was at the beginning, because we were going based off of like a theoretical suspension number setup through calculations, and it really didn't end well.
That's what I always wonder. Like, could somebody, swing my car and tell me exactly what? Really, it is, hey, set a car up and let me drive it, is what I've really realized. Because I'm afraid if I started messing with all that stuff, is why I probably don't, I'll just mess it up. That's why I realize I'm just a lemming that says, get me in the ballpark and let me drive. Because I'm so afraid that I would go calculations and say, oh, it has to be perfect. I'd never mess with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there are times where, like, we just adjust camber and stuff and not knowing the numbers, just going whatever direction and just feeling what it does.
Yeah.
And, drivability or how it drives.
Yeah.
Better or worse.
Do you do any practice days or testing where you're just doing skid pads or slaloms for over and over again, or is this always on course per se?
Always course.
Okay.
There were times where we would go to Arizona where they have like a skid pad set up and slalom, where we'd try it a couple times, but
we always found our way to the main course. So, because it's all, I don't know, I think it's all about connecting this stuff, all the elements, not as much as how fast you can get through a slalom, because when you get to the end of the slalom, you got to go somewhere.
Yeah. That's, I still, although I heard our lot is covered with Volkswagens, my plan is to rent the lot and just go do things like set up something similar to the crossover, and I want to try it 15 or 20 times with the same type start, so I'm always at the same speed getting to it, and look at some data plus look at a clock setup and do it over and over. Or do a slalom that leads to something over and over, so get like 2 segments together and over. Because hearing the Whiteners and Hollis evidently like 15 minutes slalom practice. True, your tires are getting hot as can be, but I'm like, I don't think I've ever done 15 minutes of anything.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm amazed at how some people have the test availability that they can do that and test something over and over again. Just to, I guess, really get the feel. I'm itching. I'm like, can I please get a lot between now and the next pro, even if it's just in a Civic, just to do it over and over again? Because I haven't been out in a Civic or CRX till this weekend. I was like, oh, this is fun. I was like, I feel like I'm looking ahead. It was amazing till the finish, but yeah, it was. That's where I'm wondering on the testing side, how much would you guys benefit if you did just do a slalom? Of course, then you have to, okay, this setup is great for the slalom. Then I could go slalom decreasing radius or something. I think in the ultimate world, I'd love to have all these little different things I can test over and over again. And then maybe I'd be committed more to, okay, I'm going to change this shock setting or something and really see.
Yeah, I will say that, I mean, when they've had the skid pad and the slaloms, really until they blended the whole thing together, that was when we truly found out the strength and weaknesses of the car.
So maybe a slalom oval or a sweeper slalom or something, and then maybe an oval would be something you could really get a feel of, I guess, enough elements?
No. I mean, because a lot of the times, like when you're going into like a slalom test, you're going to it at maybe a slower speed of, you know, of like, say, a 60-foot slalom, like, you know, versus 75-foot slalom. And, you know, that speed difference of entering it in and seeing how the car reacts on the first couple cones was drastically different.
So making it as realistically as possible, basically, is the best test of having as many elements. Yeah,
versus accelerating into a slalom and all of a sudden, you know, you're 1 cone, 2 cone in, set your speed, and then go through the slalom.
Yeah. That's where something like a pro where you start someplace, you get going pretty quick, and you go, I keep thinking would be the ultimate. Where I'm trying to picture whatever Hollis was saying about 15 minutes of slalom. Like, were they all connected? Like, did you just keep going? Or I was trying to figure out, so maybe I'll quiz him at some point and say, what's the best slalom practice in your mind ever?
Yeah.
To see how that 50, I mean, I'll probably be car sick and can't do that, but I'd like to try it.
I think we take it like a step further, though. We go from site to site. So it's like we'll get our car working somewhere and be, okay, it felt good, but then we'll travel to wherever and go to a new site, be like, okay, now what's it going to do here? And then kind of go from there. So like when we were setting up the FRS, we literally drove down to San Diego, up to Marina, to Crow's Landing, to Fontana, to Arizona, like, and just trying all these different surfaces and seeing what stayed consistent and what kept sticking out to us was wrong.
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago, like, there was a test and tune at Crow's Landing on Saturday that we literally, like, but there was a local event at El Toro on Sunday, so we drove 5 hours up in the morning at, like, leaving at like 2:30 in the morning. 3:30 in the morning. Yeah. And then drove back down
got
that
home
night.
At 8.
We were back at home, 8, and then went to El Toro the next morning.
What time do you leave for El Toro?
5:30.
Because how long does it take to get there?
Hour and a half.
Is that no traffic at that early in the morning?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, plus I have to stop for coffee.
Oh,
Starbucks.
I just asked you to want some Starbucks. You said
I already had it today.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, the car was, so getting the consistency on various surfaces is the key for us. However, even though we did that test, the next weekend we changed the car and went to San Diego and said, hey, if it works at San Diego, it'll work at Fontana. We were wrong.
Not quite.
It was close. It was just...
Which of these lots around here, even including the ones further away is most like nationals.
Probably Marina.
And Marina is not Crows.
No, that's up in Monterey.
Okay, so it's even further.
No, it's the same distance actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's 5
just
hours.
different
It's just
freeway.
whether you
Okay.
take the 101 or the 5.
or highway.
Okay. So how many of those do you make a year probably?
So far this year, we've been to Marina 3 times, and Crow's Landing twice.
We've been to
So here's where I make everybody jealous. How many events do you make a year? Events, and I want practice days and events added separately.
I try
th-
not to add it up.
Yeah, our rule is not to add it up.
But I will say that since February 11th weekend, we have autocrossed every weekend.
How many
Wait.
weekends is that?
I don't know, but we're going to Crow's Landing this weekend.
And some of those are two-day events.
Yeah, so we're going to
What is this weekend in Crows?
American Autocross.
I should have just stayed here and rented the car again. What the heck?
It will be up there.
So that's where I don't think people realize how much practice. And I would struggle to say some people can't do as much setup changes, or I almost think they shouldn't if they can't practice that much. Would you tell them still?
Well, I mean, when we went down to San Diego with our new setup, we were in grid doing
Big changes.
big changes as well too.
Trying to do it in the two-driver lane while they're-
we only got 4 runs, but we got
The clocks went down, so Jeff made a big change real quick.
yeah. So we were able to test out 4 different cars.
Do you ever look at somebody else's setup? A lemming. So me, I'm just Mr. Lemming. Would you go and ask somebody who's doing what theirs is to try it?
We
copied once, and that was the basic FRS internet setup.
yeah,
And we
like in the ballpark of it.
like
yeah.
and that lasted
one event.
Yeah, we didn't like it, so
Yeah.
we're nowhere near that now.
I mean, and again, going by feel, it didn't have really any strengths.
Yeah. Nothing stood out, so it wasn't great in some area. It was just kind of.
Well, it
private.
didn't allow
Yeah.
us to drive how we want to drive it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Is there a certain time of the year before nationals you're not allowed to make changes?
No, because we made changes at Lincoln last year.
Yeah.
Okay. You're like, I know.
But
it
that
can
was
be better.
only that was rain practice settings, which actually I guess worked out. But because we had nothing to do, we didn't run till the end of the week, and we had those test sessions, and it just kept raining on us on the test.
So you could play. 'Cause
So
you can set
we
it
were
back to where it
messing
was.
with our car in the wet, and
Yeah.
it was fun.
All right, since we're sitting at pro parts, when it comes to shocks and what are they called, pillow ball mounts?
Yes.
And can you have mounts on the top and bottom of the spring? Is that letting the spring be free so it doesn't bind?
Usually, you only need it at the top to isolate the spring from the upper shock mount. So as the suspension is compressing, you're allowing it to articulate. But I know that people do end up putting like hydraulic spring perches, and also Torrington bearings. So it allows the spring to actually freely move and also prevents the spring from binding a certain way.
And it sounds like if you have one end that's rotating, it shouldn't be able to bind. I think is what you can do more, but if one end is twisting, the other one lets it go, I guess it won't really bind.
Yeah, I would generally say that having just it on one end is fine, but I know people do both ends.
Is that something you would suggest to anybody out there if they don't have that at all? Better than not better? Did they feel that? Would they notice anything specific?
Having a pillow ball mount in general and isolating the spring from resting on the upper perch is always ideal in my opinion. It's not a necessity, but it does also keep the shock in its happy place from unwanted side load.
Okay, and that's what with Chris Shinnefield, who was explaining how there's side load on things, and I'm like, what? I didn't get it all, but he kept talking about how much force there is, and that's how big some of the shafts are to keep it from bending or flexing. I'm like, what? But
Yeah,
I think
probably in struts, more so struts.
Oh,
than-
yes.
Yeah.
See, once again, he broke down some stuff there for the two difference. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, yeah, struts, like, integral, whereas the other one, it finally started making sense. But I remember something about that, and you always had pillow ball mounts.
Yeah.
And the only reason I have now is because I bought your car to get your shocks, those shocks. And I had those. Because otherwise I was like, oh, I had no clue that those could be binding like that. So it makes sense. What else would you tell somebody that's looking at a shock setup? So obviously pillow ball mount's a nice add-on there. Is there any other basics somebody gets into from stylus shock, single versus double, remote reservoir? Your thoughts on that?
I guess with shocks in general, getting dynographs and just making sure you have an acceptable range of the spring rates you're planning on running would be the number one tip. However, I will say that comparing shocks, shock graphs, and trying to make a canister shock, with a certain graph, and trying to translate that over to an inline non-canister shock, they work way different from what I've seen. I don't know why, but...
And here's the noob question. What's a canister shock versus a non?
Oh, so remote reservoirs, having remote reservoirs versus non-remote reservoirs. Kind of like what the 2812s are that you have on your car.
Gotcha. And you said acceptable range. So on a typical shock that you have on the BRZ, what range of springs can that shock be adjustable for?
So the Megan Racings are actually unique, where you can actually have a range from stock to whatever you desired to run, essentially, because it has that much range in it.
So that's where you said you had 200-pound springs up to 1,000. So that's some kind of range a shock can actually handle. The valving can handle that. You can adjust it based on.
Yeah, more or less.
And so when you guys are doing all this testing, if you put in a different spring, that means you're probably going to change your rebound and compression maybe to match that as a base setting?
Well, the shocks are non-adjustable. They're single adjustable, and they do both rebound and compression, but the compression is very low as far as how much it adjusts on the low speed aspect of it, and the high speed as well too. But the rebound curve does change drastically, when adjusting. So, but as far as the characteristics, because the compression is so soft, you're able to get away with higher spring rates.
Okay.
Where with a softer shock or softer springs, you might be better off with more compression, but it's hard to say for sure, since I can't.
So if I was to go from a 200-pound spring to a 500, should I probably turn rebound up to handle that higher spring to begin with?
It's just like a double-edged sword, unfortunately, where the shock, you definitely want it to just control the spring, but the softer that you go, generally the more stiffer shock adjustment settings you try to use to sort of get the car to do what you want it to do. But I mean, it's all relative, based on what you want to do as a driver.
Yeah, plus the platform, front wheel drive versus rear wheel, which end you'd probably even be changing.
Yeah,
to do that. That's where I still know so little. I keep swearing I'm going to test and just go out there and make drastic changes and go, oh, I felt that difference here and there.
Well, I mean, the one thing about shocks, though, is that, it's not really... It's there to make you more confident as far as driving the car itself versus making the car physically faster. I mean, obviously, you can be on the opposite end of the spectrum where, it just changes the car and makes it handle poorly, but...
once you're in the range, you're basically tuning once again to your feel, so you can...
Yeah, so you can have more confidence in driving it.
That's what I think. So it was a Hollis video or something. He's like, I just want to set up my car where I can attack the course as much as possible. And that's kind of what I think about the whole rear end sliding around or not. I just want to be able to attack as much as possible and have it hopefully stick, no matter what I do up front, almost to a fault.
Yeah.
Like let it slide around a little bit, only when I need that to turn a little extra. Something I realized, I told you guys I drove the EP Civic. I'm blanking on the name right this second. Washburn. When their car was in ST or STS trim, his car was set up where I'd go through, he was driving, you go through a sweeper and lift and it would rotate. And I think somebody recently told me, I'm trying to remember this or see if you guys know. I forget, I think they were saying it was the rebound setting in the rear or the compression in the rear was set so that they'd lift and the car would rotate. And that's one thing, if so, I really want to test that out because I was like, oh, if I could have a car that would do that consistently and I could, in my mind, know that I could make it do that, It was amazing that you could be going and, I need it to turn a little more. Okay, I'm going to lift and it rotates and I can floor it again. It was bizarre when somebody said, that's a shock setting. I'm like, oh, really? I wanted mine to rotate, but I've never thought about that or had that. I didn't feel that in the CRX, but since I left foot brake, I might be doing totally different things. You might say your car does that all the time, and I would be stopping it.
Yeah. It does, when you do lift, it does rotate, and that's the feel that we were after in that car, was just to be able to rotate and have it be slow enough and predictable enough, like what you're saying. So yeah, I mean, definitely, shocks can help with that. If you have that range adjustment,
and your left foot doesn't drag the car forward. So something realizes with my left foot, I'm like, that must stop. In my mind, that stops it, because I've always felt like left foot braking in those things makes it hunker down somehow. Like, I don't know, I feel like the car lowers down or something weird like that, where it's not so loose, which might be preventing something like that from me ever getting to that point.
Yeah. It's very possible. I actually tried left foot braking back in 2009.
Okay.
And I found that it was better for myself to set up the car for right foot braking, because I was using left foot braking too much as a crutch.
Believe me, in the back of my mind, I'm like, am I overslowing places because of that?
Yeah.
It's like when you walked up and said, you don't need you were very diplomatic. You said, in the BRZ, I don't need to touch the brakes there. I'm like, I obviously feel like I need to, but I do wonder. Do I need to or not? Am I being too aggressive with my inputs and therefore I'm having to? These are the things I debate that. Man, how can I get enough testing to figure that out?
Well, Crow's Landing Test and Tune. We can do some ride-alongs. And,
that's true, yeah.
And learn some things.
And especially, honestly, getting you guys in the car that with me driving might be good, bad, or indifferent. Might be like, oh, yeah, that was aggressive. I feel like when I'm in a car, people are like, oh, my goodness, you're so abrupt. And I think there's so many different styles. Like when I rode with Matthew Braun, abrupt, very on purpose. I'm going to slam on the brakes here and slam on the gas right afterwards. Yet I keep thinking there's got to be some in between all this that morphs into even better or more consistent.
Yeah.
I'm probably a little bit more aggressive than him in the CRX.
And when y'all ride with each other, do y'all notice that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a hard time. He's good at, he'll go into a corner, and when he brakes, I like to make the nose of the car go down. He keeps it flat, so he keeps the car happier, I guess.
That's what Tom Berry was saying, that they've realized by looking at the data over and over that Tom and I think drive the same nose. He's like, the data's showing slow earlier and don't do that. But I felt like in those turnarounds this weekend, I was just on the nose and like, did I just overslow? Like when I locked up the brakes a little, or the tires a little bit, I'm like, probably overdid that a little bit. So I feel like I'm on that end, and I'd like to. And I try to tell myself I should have written it down. I should have notes say, brake earlier. Brake way earlier, like 10 feet before, so you don't have to brake as much. That's something I really still am coming back to trying. But I think that in order for me to, let's say, change my style to your style, I have to change more than just one thing. If I'm changing my braking, it's not how hard, it's also how hard and when and for how long, which I think is a tricky. If somebody rides with me or rides with you and wants to be like us, one thing is probably not different. It's probably two or three things that add up to still be competitive with a different style.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say, I mean, we do struggle to hop into other cars, though, given our style, and be fast in it, so...
It doesn't sound like you guys have hopped in lots of cars. You seem like you get in a car and you stick with it for years and years, or you try it out for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, not really.
I can count on my hand how many different people's cars I've actually took runs in.
Yeah.
Not many.
Yeah. So. Since 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden lately, obviously, I get to drive Whitener's. I've driven yours. I drove the GT3. So all of a sudden, I'm breaking out of that mold of, nope, I drive my car and only my car and nothing else.
Actually, that test and tune we had at Lincoln, was that Spring Nationals?
Yeah,
Spring
Nationals.
When we had all the Civics back there. That was like probably the most cars I've driven at once.
That was the most fun experience.
Actually, it was pretty cool to feel how different everyone's car was.
Yeah. I don't think I got it. I'm forgetting if I got in Jason's CRX. Maybe you remember better than me. I don't think I did. I was like, I don't think I've ever driven a CRX. Maybe I have. But that was just a blast, even riding with people. And at some point there, or maybe it was before, I got in that EP Civic, and that was insane. I mean, with power steering, you can just. I mean, take what you felt going to a CRX, and then think you're going to take another 200, 300, 400 pounds out of it, and up the power 100 or something. It felt like wherever you turn the wheel is going to go. Like, okay, I'm obviously not at the limit because it's just going anywhere I want it to go.
Yeah. I think she wants to go down that path.
And I guess the CRX is probably NEP. I don't even know all the rules are limited or whatever it is. So.
Oh, I have no idea. I like the car and I want to keep driving it, but I think for now, I think we've been in STS for a long time. Yeah. So it's probably time to move on.
A Miata for either of you ever? Have you driven like an STS Miata?
I drove one Miata, and I wasn't a fan.
That's where I drove one in E-Stock. I thought back in the day I might buy one. And he told me it's a little lot, you're not going to have fun. And it was so not fun on a little tight lot. I was like, oh, my goodness.
I haven't liked any Miatas. All the generations, actually.
Oh, that's right. There's one around here somewhere.
Oh. Yeah. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's me. But they just, for whatever reason, the rear of those cars just don't feel connected to me.
S2000 experience, either of you?
That was fun. I've driven one.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah. Those are fun. I would much prefer that over the latest generation Miata.
Okay.
Or MX-5.
That's where I'd like to go back and forth. I almost emailed somebody for the first Pro of the Year down in Florida. I still want to take the family down there. Like, we can go to the beach. No, I'm going to go racing, and you guys are going to go home or whatever, but I'm going to race. I was like, man, I wonder if I could drive a Miata in STR form. I've driven a S2000 some, but it's crazy to me how those cars out of the Civic just feel big and heavy. Like, I drove one several times, and I bought it, and then I was like, this is, like, big and heavy. And it took talking to Yom. He's like, no, keep it and drive it and learn how to drive a rear-wheel drive car. But he goes, you have to slow down for the slow stuff. He's like, it's not as good as that as the Civic. And it really, I don't know why I have to keep admitting to everybody. It's like I was making the rookie mistakes of overdriving in those cars that are slightly heavier. So you're in a car that weighs what now, the BRZ-ish?
I think it's like 26, 27, or around 26 or 27. We haven't actually weighed it, but...
Yeah.
I know when we first got it, I struggled with how huge the car feels. I still struggle with the pillars visible. Like at the Pro, I literally leaned out the window to see the tree. I can't see it.
Yeah.
But that car... But I had the opposite problem. I actually slowed down too much. And the car can go faster than the CRX around corners.
Oh.
So I wasn't going fast enough. But it still feels... Like when I started slalloming it, I think I hit all the cones first few runs because the car's huge.
Yeah, it's wider by 6 inches, 8 inches, probably, something
When
like that.
we park the CRX and FRS in the garage, the CRX ends before the rear wheels of the FRS.
I don't think it's that much. No.
Yes.
It's
and the mirrors, the mirrors are underneath
it
each
is
other.
a 101 wheelbase versus like a 90 wheelbase. So,
That's about right.
And the back is cut off.
Yeah.
That's where seeing that next to Chris Cox's Mustang Cobra.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, that car looks so little. And then we go, it's 540 horsepower. I'm like, we need to re-index this real quick somehow.
You left first, right?
Who?
Or
Yes, I left first.
Or you left first, yeah.
No, he left
yeah.
first. Yes, so that means, yeah, he was slower. Until I lined up against him. Either I added an extra second on course or he's that fast. All the fun. So what other thoughts do y'all have for people that if they wanted to follow in your footsteps from working in this industry to even setting up cars? I'm really reaching for any other thoughts you guys have on the autocross experience to, I mean, how many championships do you even know between the two of you? Or adding them together?
I don't.
I'll have it in the show notes. It'll be in the introduction. A bunch.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, for myself, and I think I can speak for Nicole on Nicole's behalf, but having a confidence inspiring car so you can drive it at the limit is the most important thing. Because I mean, with me driving around things and even though I might think, even though the times are a little bit faster, but if Nicole can't drive it, then we usually say there's something wrong there with the setup. So that's why it's also good to have other people drive your cars and see how easy it is to drive as well, too.
Oh, yeah. And that's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. The co-driving aspect, does that add a ton of dimension? Does that add the joy factor here? Like the pleasure that you get to study the stuff afterwards. You're obviously commuting together.
I would say when things work well,
Yeah.
for the most part.
When you're both winning, both competing.
Depends how bad the car is.
So were y'all competitive before autocross?
I had no idea it was competitive, actually.
Yeah.
We just kind of, literally, we just jumped in and we just get as much seat time as possible. And then
Was seat time? Did y'all ride with people? How did you learn?
we rode with each other.
Yeah,
that was it.
That was it.
We literally did
And-
not ride with anybody. We didn't go to any schools. We didn't really do anything. We
Looked at videos.
well, not even in the protege. We didn't have videos. We just
Oh.
driving with each other. Just
Yeah. Seat time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And trying things, testing things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like we, when we first got the Civic, we didn't know what we were doing. We just kept doing things. And, we really like how this feels.
Yeah.
So
More camber's better.
sometimes.
I'm not sure you heard the story. If you can't beat them, join them. So it was, I guess I won in New Mexico. Somewhere I beat you, and somewhere I beat Jason Frank. So I'm like, I can finally compete with these guys. And at Nationals, at the Pro, you're like a second or second and a half ahead. That ends. Day one at Nationals, you're both over a second ahead. I got to grid. I went and talked to Leslie. I said, do you mind telling me what camber you have? She goes, I maxed it out at 4.3 or whatever she could do. She goes, and I could no longer keep up with you two until she did that. So in grid, I changed it, and that was the really sweepery course. And that's one change I noticed. Like, once I did that, I feel like I turned in on one of those big sweepers, and it sucked me over. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, we do like our camper.
Yeah.
Yeah, in an autocross, I swear, anybody that hasn't maxed it out in the front of their car, I'm always like, wait, you can have more and you don't have it? I think it was a GG3 or something. I was like, wait, how much can you get? That's all I want to know is I want that much. Because most cars, stock-wise, they go to 2 or 3 or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, do that.
Yeah.
It looks like that's what you kind of found the BRZ. At least you're testing that.
We're in the middle of testing.
Yeah, it was good so far.
And how about and I ordered for the Sprint some caster plates. Do you guys play? Can you play? Yeah, you can play with caster in that.
We've never done that, actually.
Yeah, we haven't tested caster.
Because that reminds me, whenever I first got into the ST Civics, back then, maybe you had a lot of camber, but out east they didn't. And Hollis didn't do tons of camber, but he slotted the front control arm so it had more caster or something. So in my mind, I thought that would probably be the ultimate. Can I run less static camber in a double wishbone, but get more camber because I've turned the wheel? That's kind of me. I like, if I was over here and had the tools, I'd probably be like, let me figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've driven cars with like a lot of caster, and I guess the balance of or I guess trying to balance that out. I don't know if that was ever ironed out, but we just stuck to our camber, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, so having the Chevy Sprint Turbo, which Van swears he's reviving, and we're going to take it to somebody that's going to go through it. First time ever. On that, I think we had it where we had camber and caster at the same time. On a front-wheel drive car with limited slip, that gets evil when we had too wide of wheels on there for scrub radius. You turn the wheel, and you had to manually, with a lot of power, turn it back. Maybe that's not caster and scrub radius. Evil. So I've thought about saying, okay, I really need to have you make another set that just adds camber and no caster. Because that little car weighing 1,500 whatever pounds is bizarre with limited slip when it pulls. What do they call it in front-wheel drives when you get the...
Torque steer?
Torque steer. That, and when it wouldn't unwind.
Oh, wow.
Bizarre. So that's a case where when you said that, it reminded me, oh yeah, caster or some combination there is weird and terrible.
Yeah, we haven't had any issues with our camber testing as far as what you're experiencing. But, I mean, this is the first time we've been in a strut car, though, too.
Protege.
Oh, the Protege, yeah. Didn't have that issue, though.
It had a lot of torque steer, though.
Yeah.
Because you had a lot of power.
Yeah, I think steering wheel would rip out of my hands.
It's all relative.
Hey, it's probably the most powerful car we've had.
Yeah, it's just so long ago that you weren't necessarily fast in it. Probably you're figuring everything out.
Well,
Yeah.
because the FRS feels pretty slow to me. But I think the CRX feels faster.
And that's what, when Jan pointed out, he's like, that GT3 is not faster than that Civic in every corner. Because, like, there's no way that car could ever beat... He goes, no, some places, look at the weight of physics and the width of the tires. I'm like, oh, you're so right. I just have to keep telling myself that because I'm like, I just kept overdriving. It's like I became a rookie when I got in that car. For one, it's really fun to go fast. I don't want to slow down, but just overdoing it. That's why when you said the BRZ is faster in turns than the CRX, that's surprising to me at some level because actually the times of STS to STX, are they still pretty relative depending on the course? Are they still kind of close?
If there's no third gear, once the BRZs get to shift to third,
Forget
CRX,
it.
yeah, because we don't shift, we just ride the limiter. But
at Fontana, is that what you're referencing, the times?
Well, anywhere. I didn't.
But
I don't
it's
know.
actually it depends. The CRX is good at this pro course was probably good for the CRX because it had lots of tight transitions where the FRS kind of felt big.
Yeah, but I mean, our car wasn't there, but as far as what we thought was true, 100% acceptable. But I mean, generally we would beat STS by a good amount in our local events.
Yeah.
Our local courses are pretty fast.
But yeah, not all of them have been third gear.
Not all of them. Everybody, you heard that right. Not all of them. Most of us never get third gear in most courses.
When was the last time we didn't shift?
What's the top of second in a BRZ in STX-ish trim?
63, 64.
Wow. So yeah, I watched a lot of those videos. It's amazing how fast.
Yeah.
That's why.
There's times where you look down and it's like I'm going through the finish at almost 80 miles an hour.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. That's where I swear people would always complain locally about no high speeds, and I started traveling in pros, and you want to talk about fast? It's like Utah always seem to have really really high speed pros. Come under El Toro, some of those events would be so big.
Yeah.
That's where you get some experience that a lot of people I think in local smaller lots never get. They just don't.
Yeah, we actually travel to find small lots now.
Oh, really?
Like we would, we have all these fast courses in California. You get to nationals and there'd be like smaller features, and our car would be pushy because we have all the stability for all of our road courses out here. And so now we seek small lots.
Or become the course designer, and then you can create those. You never make everybody happy. It's okay. You'll learn that real quick.
No, it's easier for us to just keep going to all the different regions.
Check them all out.
Yeah. They all have different styles too, so it's nice.
So do y'all set goals at the beginning of each year?
I don't think so. I don't.
Well, this year we wanted to beat our CRX.
Yeah. We wanted to make sure that we're ahead of STS in general.
As a benchmark, basically.
Yeah.
Are there still fast STS guys obviously here?
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean the same people like Steven, Yo, and Pete. I don't know if Steven's developed his car further, but I know Pete's been playing around with things and getting faster.
So you have those benchmarks once again that obviously STX needs to be a little bit quicker than STS.
Yeah, STS just kind of shrunken over the last few years. So
that's until they split the Miatas back out from the Civics and CRXs. Well, let's all write letters. If you write a letter, tell me so I can write one. I'll figure that out somehow. So I was thinking about competition coming back. What brings you back? You're not necessarily that you have to set goals. It's just that much fun. Is the community, a little bit of everything.
I like driving. I mean,
the
driving part's fun.
I would say a little bit of everything, though. I mean, you
like to tinker, even though you complain about all the work.
Yeah, I do like to tinker, but I mean, talking to people and meeting friends and seeing old friends.
Yeah.
There's always a
knowing people
reason to come back.
All these different states.
Yeah.
So this is 1 decade. This is your 10th anniversary.
Yep.
Wow.
That's
a long time.
Yeah, a long time, but lots of championships too. That's the thing, is y'all been consistently fast for quite a while. So that's where people can. I always tell people, ask people questions like, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you trying?" Hopefully, they can get out of this the thoughts of what you're going through for testing, keeping track of it, trying things. Because somebody they're also going to like to tinker, and they're going to find enjoyment in that as well as getting faster and being better. And I love that you're talking about the feel. You're really tinkering for the feel that actually is working for both of you. Which is an interesting way to. Of course, at times y'all have 2 cars and take 3 to events. So
we tried that. We both ended up wanting to be in the same car.
Yeah. We
brought the Civic and the CRX out. We both wanted to be in the CRX, and then we had the ND and the FRS out. We both wanted to be in the FRS. And we had well, actually, no, when we had the FRS and the CRX out, I wanted to drive both. So.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to drive the FRS.
For the challenge?
Yes and no. I think that the FRS is easier to drive in a way, and I kind of lost the full potential of how to drive the CRX by driving the FRS so much.
I'm hoping that's not rubbing off on me from driving. I was thinking, oh, this is fun. I was a little nervous going, I haven't driven one of these in a while. I still lop them in the Civic, telling myself to be somewhat confident that I can drive them. So
yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of quirks and stuff, in front-wheel drive in those particular cars that you have to literally drive, in my opinion, every event to stay on top of it and keep you sharp.
That's where, believe me, I feel like I drop off on some things, mainly when you go from anti-lock braking back to non. That's my biggest thing. I was like, oh, yeah, when I attack these brakes and you lock them up, it's because there's not that safety gate there. And then how I'm coming off the brakes. That I'm not comfy yet, I can tell, because I'm just, brakes on, brakes off. I'm like, oh, you're supposed to be smooth with that. Of all weird things, yet since I do so much front-wheel drive, I know I can just add gas when it's going to spin.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the biggest change for you guys, or is the BRZ stable enough that you can add gas, or maybe you're smooth enough that it's not going to make you spin?
At first, it was challenging.
Yeah, at first it was like my instincts were all wrong.
Yeah.
But it's gotten better. I think the hardest thing for me switching to rear-wheel drive was when to get on the gas. It's supposed to get on at a different time. So I struggled. Like, I'd either get on way too soon and make the car plow off course, or too late. And
like the CRX, you do like all of your rotation on corner entry into like a turnaround, where like with the FRS, you can just roll on the gas and to get yourself around the corner.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. I think people are always like, oh, those front-wheel drives are weird. But it seems, in my mind, still easier to drive those than it is. Like the GT3, I got in there and I broke and I turned and I got on the gas and the car just pushed way out. I'm like, what's wrong with this? Like, this isn't working.
I feel like the CRX is almost more knife edgier than the FRS, though. But I'm enjoying the power steering right now because when we got to the grippier sights, it was definitely harder for me to counter steer.
Oh, yeah. So if you had unlimited budget and you've already won championships in the BRZ and you're like, okay, I've been here, done that, do you dream of something else? Are there any cars? Would you see yourself in a Kiesel car, a mod? What's a dream out there? Or something that would really push your limits, but you're like, that would be kind of fun to try.
I don't know. For myself, I like the idea of S2000, and also I'm doing a 350Z in STU. But everything, I mean, and maybe like, street prepared classes, but I don't know about the mod classes and the prepared classes. I like the street tires just because of the feedback that they offer. I feel that like a lot of the Hoosiers and stuff masks so many, or could mask issues and problems.
Interesting. I think I was a smoother driver on Hoosiers, and for better or for worse, after watching videos of ST guys that were beating me and how aggressive they were with the wheel. Of course, man, it was a big wheel. I didn't think about that till now. I tried to be less smooth, which may be bad once again. But, who was driving Steve? Was Steve in the green car? Will. I watched a video where he was in a sweeper doing this with a steering wheel, like going probably 30 degrees back and forth. And then when somebody got in my car at the test course one time, I was like, why did I ask him to do this? It's terrible. I can't. And then I realized it was hooking up even though he was jerking that wheel. So, oddly enough, I think I was somewhat smooth. Of course, I had a big wheel in the Integra. And I've tried to actually revert for some, well, I'm a lemming and I follow. I may make the wrong assumptions. But I feel like I've probably created bad habits on purpose to try to be faster. Just as a side note, so maybe try Hoosiers. You might be magically fast. Nicole, thoughts on other cars? I
used to want SSP Corvette, but now that I feel like the BRZ is huge, I think I might have issues with that car. So I don't know, but I still think it'd be fun to like take the CRX to something with sticky tires fast. It's I like the little car. It's fun. You can get through things.
That's where I feel like Ruin going lighter weight. Like if the Sprint could handle it all, I'm like, oh, it's lighter. It's smaller. It's not bigger like an S2000. Yeah. Have y'all driven Brian Peters' Corvette?
Yeah, and then my dad has one too. So they're fun, but they're. I always complain that they feel huge.
Yeah.
But we also have big courses, so they're fun out here on the big courses.
Oh, true, the high speed.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had Kevin Younger's course at Nationals a couple years back, you'd be a little scared of probably a lot of cones.
What year was that one?
What was it? He was on the corn side, and it was all transitions.
Oh, okay.
Hollis won whenever he designed the other course that was sweepers.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
You would never think that Hollis designed the one that was sweepers. I remember going back out, he had the big 3 or 4 offsets, and the other course is just transition everywhere.
The West course.
Yes.
Yeah, it was 2011.
Yeah, I wanted to say 2010 and didn't. I was like,
okay.
probably right.
Oh,
Yeah, that would have been.
That was the hot year. The melty brain.
Yeah,
okay.
that would have been. Yeah, that would have been probably challenging in a bigger car, definitely.
Well, just this weekend watching Peters and Hogan in the Mustang driving that course, it looked oversized. So.
Oh, true. Yeah, I forgot to step off those first couple slalom cones, to see how spaced they were, but they were tight enough that in a bigger car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So mentally, do you guys walk course a lot? And then I led with the wrong word there. So what are your takes on course walking when you get to a site?
Usually we walk once and just kind of walk it, and then the second time around we pick out where to be, I guess, our exits.
Yeah.
And do you usually nail it pretty well, or do you look at video and go, oh, wow, I didn't walk that, or something surprised me very often?
Jeff usually does exactly how he walks it.
Yeah.
I tend to drift to the moment wherever, like I'll just on the fly just decide to change my mind and drive something different. But usually we pick out where we want to be looking, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess because we've been in the same car almost, for so long in relation to speed, like myself, I've picked up like what I perceive to be flat out or where I'm going to be able to place a car. And so when I execute on course, I generally I would say at least 90 to 95% of the time, I do what I walked.
Yeah.
But there are times where I will readjust and there are times where I'll lose because of my stubbornness of walking course.
Oh, picking some spot out and executing on that?
Yeah.
That's where I tell people no longer do I pick out brake zones, because I would brake there even would not be llooking ahead of like I'm supposed to brake there.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if
I don't think we do.
Yeah, we don't do that.
But we do, if there's ever a tricky spot or a gotcha like that, it's just obvious in course, we do make it a point to point it out and how we want to do it.
Yeah, but like this looks weird or something.
Well,
Yeah,
it's just like,
it's generally like where you and I will have a disconnect in our,
You'll be
our
walking,
course views.
She goes here, you go there, like, uh-oh. I would imagine the middle is probably the answer.
Well,
split the difference between
I don't know. I walk the course a little wider than I drive it because I naturally pinch things off, I guess.
So, and I try to walk it tighter where
So he'll
like
try to get me to walk this tight line, and I know that if I do that, I'll drive it even tighter somehow.
Oh, wow. So I try to walk the ideal tight line, hope I'll get there, and be like, oh, in reality, I'm probably over here, and kind of just recognize that. Or at least I'll think about, well.
But sometimes I'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be out here. And then so he'll go out there, but then I pull it in when I'm driving. And he's like, well, you said this. But
it's like those lay-down cones that were getting hit on the...
yeah.
I was like, I was walking with somebody, probably Brian, and I was like, someone's going to hit these cones. And the people were hitting those cones. I'm like, most people are not going to slow down to make this turn. That's what I see. So many people walking unrealistic lines in my mind. I'm like, there's no way you're getting over there or they'll walk to a cone and turn. I try to make what I'm walking or if I'm out there jogging the course to be somewhat realistic.
Well, I would say, like, for us, I'm always in the passenger seat when we walk course.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh.
I don't know. She just always has to be on that side. But I don't know that we actually walk to, like, where the car's going to be. More of just kind of looking at what's next to connect it.
Yeah.
So in your mind, you know where to look ahead to.
Yeah. I mean, there have been tons of local courses where, if she runs first or I run first, we'll say, did you drive it how we walked?
Yeah.
And to kind of give us a point of reference of what to expect, without, actually riding or, or
and that's
whatever.
basically where she might say, oh, no, this part surprised me or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's only when the FRS has been a little bit more challenging just because if it's good, then we spend, less mental resources in trying to figure things out.
What to change, what to
can
tweak.
actually drive, yeah. So.
What's your mental approach once you make runs? Are you sitting there talking to anybody right away? Or are you sitting there thinking about what you're going to correct 1, 2, 3, 5 things?
Before the first run, or
No, after first run.
Well, I know for me, after my first run, I usually pick up all anything that came up and surprised me or my mistakes, and I usually just try to go fix them on my second run. But
yeah, same with me, especially in the FRS because there's so many things that are weird about that car as far as like braking, hitting ice mode or whatever, that make it challenging sometimes that we don't expect. I mean, like the Match Tour course, there's this like downshift into like second spot that like had a huge bump before it, and that we looked at it on course and we're like, oh, okay, well there's a bump there, but we didn't realize we'd blow our braking zones multiple times
while trying to get the car back into second.
Yeah.
So therefore, you made an adjustment. Say, okay, we have to brake sooner or something to do that.
Yeah.
Like
I think we ended up moving over to the right a little bit too.
Yeah, like the CRX would, it would have been fine. We would just had like a little bit of lockup. It would have been bouncy, but we would have been able to get through it. But with the ABS assist and all that stuff.
I guess part of it is that because we knew the CRX so well, we were able to walk, then run, and then pretty much know right away what to fix. To the FRS,
you're still learning basically all those little different points there. So you brought up the mental game before you're running. Are you visualizing? Are you?
No, I can pretty much talk to whoever and do whatever until I put my helmet on, and I'm okay.
All right.
For the most part, I know some people like to not speak to anyone and get pretty serious and great. Actually listening to music helps me too. Like I'll listen to music at nationals.
And Jeff?
I feel like I've walked the course enough, like at nationals, that it doesn't bother me either way to talk to people or not to talk to people.
So how many times you walk on a nationals course?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I would imagine anywhere from at least 10 to 15 times at a minimum.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it depending on the days that we run.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, on that Monday, I would say, like, just between, like, we'll usually walk the opposite time or
course,
opposite run. Yeah.
We start on the one that we're not starting with.
Okay.
Yeah,
just to kind of get it in your mind.
Yeah. And we'll run and then
we'll focus on the one that we're running.
Yeah, it depends on how bad the hangover is.
Back when I was y'all's age, I liked to race hungover and tired. I think because I couldn't think, I'd just drive. I was like, wow, that worked out. I haven't tried it in quite a while. I'm still tempted at times. Like, just stay up really late and see how that works. I've probably been frantic made my runs this weekend had I been, oh, this is so great. It's sunny out here. Nice. So quite a bit of walking. The mental, is there visioning at night? Do you then think about that? Like I wake up sometimes like, oh, here's the course. Let me go through this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like
usually if we walk at night, I can remember it in the morning.
Yeah.
So,
and
granted, at night, the courses always seem really fast to me. And then I walk in the morning, I'm like, oh, never mind.
I got to slow down somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm usually pretty good about remembering them.
Any video watching between runs?
He used to do that.
We used to, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, that's where I'm surprised some people like Scott Fraser says somebody will watch the video or look at the data and come and tell him something. Like there's almost like a tech video team back there that will do the stuff while he's.
Yeah, like I mean, sometimes like if there's a little bit of struggles, I'll watch and just to see what I was doing. But I mean, at big events like nationals and stuff, they're all if needed. Definitely.
Yeah, if there's something probably really like, whoa, that's something really surprised you or the car was really weird, you might look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I usually don't like feedback. I usually don't like it if he looks at my run and tells me to fix something, because I'll focus on just that one thing and then I'll just make a new mistake. So I like to just
have your own mental list, basically.
Yeah, like if it was something bad and I'm aware of it, I'll go out there and try to fix it on my own. But, sometimes you'll be like, oh, Nicole, you can just lift here instead of tapping. But it doesn't work for me. Tapping is just as fast. And, so as of lately, I just, because it's Solo Storm kept telling me, you got to do this. And it was wrong. So I like to, now I just rely on my gut.
See, I wonder if I'd be able to interpret that, like, oh, tap instead of lift. If you told me that, I'd wonder either I over-focus on it or would I just not even be able to. For me, it's the major things like, oh, that surprised you could go faster there. And I almost feel like I've kind of gotten so sloppy that I need to finish runs and have the 2 or 3 things, maybe write them down, but like, it's this, and this. Instead of running around and doing tire pressures or something like I like to do, it's like, oh, it's a couple things. Make sure you're aware of that next run.
Yeah.
But at Pro Solos, though, he'll compare videos sometimes just because we have
you've got
so
time.
many sessions.
Yeah.
But.
And that's where I thought like when I had the TrackMate up and running, that was the time you had time between runs. You still dedicate the time, but you could sit there and look at the information and really see, like, oh, wow, I'm way offline compared to you there. And that was the biggest thing it told me the first time I ever ran in Packwood. Like, that's a second I can take off by tightening up the lines.
Yeah.
It was worth it right there if I never used it again.
Yeah.
I was like, guess what? If you're way off somebody else's pace in your car, tighten up your lines. That's kind of it. No, I like the fact that all the video, your thoughts there, as well as setting up the car for feel. That's something that maybe I can finally take and go, oh, what do I like this feel? Change it drastically. Oh, I don't like having that feel. And I'm going to challenge myself, as I've been doing for quite a while, is to think, and especially when I make it to the practice, of just right foot braking to see how much different the car will be. Right foot versus left foot, which I'd challenge a lot of people. If you're hopping in someone else's car and they drive it with the other foot, you may think it's evil and weird because you don't give it the same inputs of the weight transfer.
Yeah.
I've tried left foot braking once. I almost gave myself whiplash, so it's not for me.
I liked what Ross Bentley said. He goes, theoretically it's faster, but only if your left foot's as good as your right foot. So for most people, I don't think they should ever be doing it. I wouldn't tell you guys, oh, you need to change, because the amount of practice it would take, I don't even know if still be faster or not. Because like you said, it's a crutch that then I can drag. I go drag. And then Jeff will come over and go, hey, you might not need to brake that much. But that's where I want the brake pressure to really see what am I doing.
Well, he doesn't like braking in general. I mean, Nicole, you can just lift here. No, I can't.
Well, what I hope that that's true, and I hope I can never get to that, because I feel like I'm like, there is no way. But maybe if I looked at enough video, especially if I could compare me to you, I might see different inputs.
Yeah, his lifts are definitely a timing thing, I've learned.
Lifting way ahead of the input or lifting while turning? I know it can be
I think
different
it's
every turn,
turning
too.
sooner with the big lift.
Yeah.
And is it rotating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're getting the car to rotate without turning the steering wheel because the lift induces some extra rotation.
Yeah.
Which is the ultimate from what I hear.
I think, being more committed to the turn way sooner, I think, is what the difference is. But, and trusting that slide just right and not hitting a cone too. So.
Yeah, but our data, though, has shown that they're just two different styles, and they're both equal.
Yeah.
True.
So.
And then what's amazing, though, is you're still getting the feel between the two of you to work out where you're still both winning. That's really, I would tell people that, okay, getting a car set up in some close to ideal range is probably going to work because you two are doing it with slightly different styles.
Yeah. I would say that with the FRS having more grip possibly has favored my style a little bit more, I think. Where I can get away with even more lifts.
Oh, yeah, because you have more grip there that can grab back for you. Do you think a weight transfer as you're driving?
I do.
I do, yeah.
Okay. That's never made much sense to me, honestly. The podcast has helped me think about it a little bit, but when I did the rallycross practice, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, that's where I could really tell. Like, all of a sudden, he's like, I want you in the slalom practice to turn and then lift. I'm like, that seems like I'm combining things. I shouldn't do that. I did, and the car grabbed like no other. So it was extreme. Yet I know Bob Tennell would always tap his left foot in the slalom, like to add a little grip. But on the dirt, you can really feel how it slides so much differently because of the low grip that I almost think I need to do more of that for practice just to get in the habit of that. Because it was amazing how I'm like, even in the big braking zone, he goes, I want you to turn and then brake. I'm like, okay, I kind of do a little bit of that, but in the dirt. But he had an Evo. When I rode with him, no ABS once again, it would dig in on a left-hand turn. The front would dig in, and he'd power out. It was bizarre, like it almost pivoted on that front right tire that was dug into the dirt. But the weight transfer, as he told me, is like, oh, no, I want you to combine these things to get more grip, which on asphalt, I believe they say the more weight you put on the tire, the more grip it has. And somehow when you're lifting there, you're taking, the rear end of your car light, so it rotates. Your steering wheel is still kept straight, or actually you countersteer straight, and you probably mash the gas again.
Yeah. I mean, like that's why we like trail braking so much, is because we can feel that sensation of weight transfer.
Okay.
Definitely, like into like basically anywhere.
Yeah. Especially I think like these sweepers, if I could have done that and gotten a CRX to rotate, sweepers, kind of like the 180 at the back of these courses, I think that would have been hugely helpful. Because I kind of dove in straight, broke really hard, and then tried to hook that cone just like you guys were. I'm like, I got to hook this and be tight to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to actually drive that corner like I would in the CRX, which is more like a Ving it off in a way, because that's how I would get the CRX to rotate and go. But it doesn't work in the FRS. So. Yeah,
it sounds like that you have to have that lift. That's where I want the practice time to sit there and go, lift. Okay, did it rotate? Because in New Mexico, that one time we raced, whatever that crossover come back, my Civic would rotate every time. And maybe I truly lifted at that point for some odd reason, but that was the aha moment for me in the Civic. I'm like, here we come. It's going to rotate right here, or whatever I was doing, whether it's left foot. If I can ever get back to that, I swear that's like the ultimate. So it's, I guess it's that feel that you can control the slide of it rotating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I'm going to call this the feel.
I will say, though, that I do have my moments where, that feel has, gotten me in trouble. So,
trying to get too much of it, or trying it too long or something?
I think just giving up time and not being as efficient through that element.
Oh, okay. Like too much slide, basically?
Yeah, or just like if I would have just spent more time on the gas and then just tapped the brakes, like it would have been quicker in general.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, too much of anything, it goes probably past the point of as fast.
Which I learn every event. So,
which means you're getting past the point of ultimate grip.
Yeah.
Which I tell people, whoever's fastest is probably closest to the ideal line and at the average highest grip. They're going back and forth over it, but they're on average at a higher level of grip basically than other people. It's kind of how so autocross. Can you get to where you should be? Oh, I just went over. I better come back. I'm under. I better go back up.
Yeah.
Playing with that ultimate grip level. Not that I can think about that. I just think about, am I looking ahead? Where the heck am I going? Do you credit yourselves for looking ahead?
Well, I think we both look ahead pretty good. But I actually, in the CRX, I would literally just drive it to the limit. Like everything, it's just keep the car at that verge of wanting to spin, I guess. And that's just how I just drove it like that. But the FRS, I don't know how to feel that limit. It's a little different, but
yeah, I think the limits are just probably higher.
But the looking ahead, I think, just comes. But like when I'm out there, I'm feeling the weight. I'm more sensitive to weight transfer actually than Jeff.
Okay.
Because he'll do something to the front of the car, and I'll be like, it's too flat. It's not moving going into the sweepers right. But I don't know. I tend to drive right up to the limit, and if the limit feels bad, I back right off.
Okay.
So that's why when the car's not working right, our times will be big gaps.
I like how when we were sitting there watching her run was maybe the challenge. Like, she's really pushing. She's really going for it. And you came through and kind of slid out a little bit. But,
as the car felt good that in the afternoon. Whatever he did, I guess he turned the shocks down for him in the afternoon. I didn't run like that. So
that's how in the CRX I finally got on that right side. I felt like I was like close to the limit finally, like coming to the finish. Like I wasn't chickening. I guess I chicken out a lot with the left foot braking. And finally I was getting better and better on, I'm tapping here. I'm going to get back on it. But I was getting back to that feel of, I'm finally getting close to this limit over here of the adhesion and trusting it.
Yeah.
So that's why I kept telling you, no, the car's fine. Now the car's fine. You change something like, no, the cold tire's the first one out, but it felt great. So definitely fun. I appreciate getting the opportunity.
Hopefully you like it at Crow's.
Oh, if it's
Pretty
a
fun
high-speed
there.
course, I can't complain. Any parting thoughts? Advice?
No.
Well wishes? Yeah, so, well, give me a rundown real quick on Pro Parts. What all do you do here? What can you do? You made me some different camber plates for Chevy Sprint Turbo of all things.
That was just parts that we had laying around, but we can service all your shocks, ASTs, Motons, Penske's, Coney's, obviously, even Megan Racing now. And, we currently have, sway bars that we make for like the ND Miatas. They're available through Mazda Speed. Okay. And upper pillow ball mounts. And
those you can do the pillow ball mounts for lots of different applications for most everything you make shocks for?
It depends on like the bolt patterns and stuff, but I mean, they're generally very close. But yeah, truly, like, any new application we're just looking to, help out with, one-offs and stuff like that, shocks that were for like Ron Bauer's car, like when it was in C Street, one of the first ones, we built them double adjustables and, started early development and stuff like that. So learned a lot, and you hope to continue to move forward with that.
Yeah, basically anything new, as well as just tweaking and getting things, I guess, to the ultimate, I guess, not only starter package, but helping people build even for the Corvette C5. I know Brian Peters runs the shock, so.
Yeah.
And we have a bar for that too, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's fully available.
Yeah, I'll link to ProParts.com, because I imagine
ProPartsUSA.com.
ProPartsUSA.com.
Yeah.
American. Jeff will probably maybe even answer the phone if you call. It's like, you call my company. Hello, this is Kinch. Can I help you?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. For the show notes and contact information, please visit autocrosstalk.com. There you can also subscribe so that we can keep you up to date on new shows as they come out. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on iTunes for the upcoming shows. You can connect to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autocrosstalk. You can share your thoughts, your insights, your questions, your suggestions there. Also, share with your friends. Hopefully you found it entertaining and motivating, and hopefully other people will as well. It's been fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and check back next week for the next show.